I'd like to call to order the January 2025, January 2025 meeting of the Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals. If you would call the roll.
Curtis Brown.
Here.
Jonathan Repass.
Here.
Doug Lloyd.
Here.
Ashley Williams.
Here.
Cecil Anderson.
Here.
John Elliott.
Here.
Sherry Garrett.
Present.
Rebecca Longmire.
Here.
Paul Huff.
Here.
All 9 members are present.
Chair declares we do have a quorum today. If you would join me with in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. I am Paul Huff, the chairman of the Board of Zoning Appeals. To my right is Curtis Brown, the vice chairman, and to his right is our law director representative, Mr. Mike Moyers. We have additional people here from Codes. Steve?
Yes, I have myself, Steve Elliott, Miranda Ward, and then we have Mike Reynolds from Knox Planning.
Very good. Our voting procedures require a simple majority of the board members present. Today, there are 9 members present, so a majority of 5 is required to pass anything that we hear. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. The hearing procedure for this board is the Knox County Board of Zoning Appeals is authorized to grant variances and hear other matters by the Tennessee Code and the Knox County Zoning Ordinance, specifically 6.60, quote, Board of Zoning Appeals. These laws prescribe strict parameters, the meeting of which is required to grant a variance. The burden of proof is that an application must meet these parameters rests on the applicant. Quoting from Knox County Code of Ordinances 6.60.04 variances, quote, the purpose of the variance is to modify the strict application of the specific requirements of this ordinance in the case of exceptionally irregular, narrow, shallow, or steep lots or other exceptional physical conditions whereby such strict application would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship which would deprive an owner of the reasonable use of their land. The variance shall be used only where necessary to overcome some obstacle which is preventing an owner from using their property as the zoning ordinance intended. For each matter, the clerk will read the request into the record. The chair will then ask if the applicant is present. The chair will then ask if there is opposition or other speakers who wish to present. You do not have to come forward at this time. Once we determine the speakers for the item, we will call on government agencies such as Knox County Codes, Planning, or Engineering to make statements regarding the facts pertinent to the property and background of the request. Board members may ask questions of the governmental agencies once they have made their statements. The chair will then call on the applicant to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and present their evidence and reasoning supporting the granting of a variance. If there is no opposition, the applicant has 10 minutes to present their case. If there is opposition, the applicant and opposition each have 15 minutes. After the applicant's presentation, the board members may ask questions of the applicant. The chair will then call for opposition or other parties who have 15 minutes to speak. This 15 minutes applies to all parties, so if there are multiple parties that wish to speak, please determine how you're going to divide your time beforehand. After the opponents present their opposition, the board may ask questions of the opponents. Finally, there will be a discussion of the case by the board, during which time the board members may ask further questions of the parties that have already testified. The board will then make any determinations that it deems necessary. Our bylaws allow an application at the initial hearing of a matter to request a deferral of 30 or 60 days without prejudice. In the event of a deferral of an application or failure to appear, any opponent or opponents may be heard on the record at a meeting where the application they oppose appears on the agenda. Mr. Law Director, if you would, swear in all speakers today.
All right, if you're here to speak to this body on any matter that's on the agenda, either for or against, if you plan to speak to this body at this podium, please stand and raise your right hand.
You better raise just in case. You've got to talk to them.
All right, do you solemnly swear or affirm testimony you're going to give today be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Be seated, please.
Are there any agenda changes or corrections?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I actually talked to the applicant here for 5F, and we took this application in error, and we would ask that he be removed from the agenda.
5 what?
5F. He had a plat map that shows he had a required setback of 15 feet, but that's for the main structure, not an accessory, so he doesn't need a variance.
We concur. Any other items, any other changes?
5-0 was opted out.
Yes, 5-0.
Yes, 5-0 opted out and went to court.
And I don't believe we have to vote on that. It just simply went away. Sorry.
Just withdraw both of them without objection.
Yes. Okay. First item on the agenda is a deferred item.
Mr. Law Director, do they need to vote to remove that 5F, or
Yes,
is he
yes.
good to go?
I mean, if you wanted to amend your agenda, but by operational law, it comes off, so I think he's good to go.
Okay, you're good. Just apply for a permit. You too.
Whose district was K? I'm sorry, that's not it. The gentleman that just left.
That was 9-8.
Okay. We probably could have voted to refund part of his money, but,
They got it straightened out.
he's gone now, so. All right, 5A. I'm sorry, 4A, that's the first.
Ready?
Yes, please.
4A is a deferred request of Nick Whitehead for waiver to extend the current CA zoning line 100 additional feet to include back portion of the parcel. Property is located at 7117 Chapman Highway, CLT map 137, parcel 179, property zone CA and AG in the 9th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition to this? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Nick Whitehead, 711.
Is that Michael?
Push the button with the face. There you go.
Check one. Got it. Nick Whitehead, 7117 Chapman Highway, Knoxville, Tennessee, is the property we're checking on. Do you need my physical address?
Physical.
Right.
It's 2705 Louisville Boat Dock Road, Louisville, Tennessee.
And why do you need to extend this line?
Well, the way that the property is laid out right now, it's the old Bayou Bay Seafood House, if you've ever been there. We purchased the property approximately 2 years ago, and we've put a pre-owned car dealership into the current location. The way that the property lays out is it's actually super narrow. Where it corners off to the left side of the property, that's actually it's really steep over on that side of the left of the property. Yeah, left of the CA. It dives off. In the back portion of our property, what we'd like to do is eventually put in a small garage, something where we can work on vehicles, clean cars, do any kind of light repair work, so that we're not having to do it under a tent or any kind of structured where my guys are out in the rain or the cold currently. And this would help us. It conforms to both of the lots that are around us. Obviously, the whole road is zoned commercial zoning. I don't know why ours is cut in half, but the lot for some reason is cut in half. But it conforms to every use that I can see on the whole road. All the lots around us are commercial zones, so.
I'm quite familiar with this lot. I used to eat at the Bayou Bay years ago. I see no reason to oppose this. I will make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, or any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? You're approved.
Thank you, sir. Thank y'all. Have a good day.
Oh, one other thing, Mr. Whitehead. Please make sure when you build your shed, you conform with all the setback requirements so you don't have to come see us again. Yes, sir. 4B.
4B is a deferred request of Bza R for waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to 0.76 of an acre, located at 5901 Roberts Road, CLT map 022, parcel JA, parcel 013. I'm sorry, that's Route JA. The property zone AG in the 8th Commission District.
Mr. Chair, can we also hear 4C at the same time?
Yes, we would like to combine these two into one hearing, hear them both. Go ahead and read 4C.
Okay, so 4C is the same applicant. And it's for waiver of lot intensity from 0.79 of an acre to 0.67 of an acre, located at 5911 Roberts Road, CLT map 022, Group JA, parcel 012, Zone Ag in the 8th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? Is there any opposition to this? If you could come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us your reasoning for requesting this.
My name is Bza R. I live at 1619 LeConte Road, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37914. Okay, first of all, I'd like to say good morning to all board members. I thank you all for hearing my case today, and also for giving me the extension from last time. During our previous meeting, I was requested to bring a couple things. I was requested to bring a representative from the church, a copy of the current plot of this general area, reasons why the church doesn't need the full acre, and reasons why I will be needing the extra land. Pastor Keith Buckner, he's the pastor at New Liberty Baptist Church. He was fully ready and planning on attending up until yesterday afternoon, or yesterday around noon. He gave me a call. He said that he got sick with COVID, unfortunately, so he was not able to attend. He did write out a letter that's displayed on here. I'll read this letter. Can you go ahead and pull up the presentation? I'll read the letter in the slide where we have Pastor Keith's notes. So just a quick overview. I'll go over just the variance request, the current plot from the 2008 resub, some topography items, natural water drains, my original build plan, and what I called it an alternate. I'll discuss that later. A few statements from the church and a few statements from myself. So this is the variance that we're discussing today. So we're doing a waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to 0.76 acres on the lot belonging to the church, and we're also the second item is for the lot on 5911 Roberts Road. So pretty much what's going on is we're purchasing this back lot from the church, and we're putting an easement from Roberts Road to access this landlocked property. So go back to the plot. So on this plot, I'd like to highlight a couple things. So first we have on the The first highlighted items are the two old deed lines from the church. So the church used to be about half an acre lot. It was grandfathered in that way, and then in 2008, the church was prospering, it was growing, so the late Mr. Atkins, the one that owned the house that's next to the church, he gave him a 40-foot section for additional parking, and also they purchased this large back lot from Mr. Wilson. They were going to be using that either for additional parking or for an additional structure potentially in the future. And then on the Midwest side here, we have the 20-foot drainage easement. So this is a drainage easement for the natural water drainage. And on the east side of the property, we have another 20-foot easement. This is a sanitary sewer easement. And as we can see, both of these easements, they kind of converge on each other and they take up a large portion. So although this lot is decent size, it'll come out to, I believe, about 1.7 acres. Most of the lot is unbuildable or unusable due to these easements and due to how the topography of the land goes. So go to the next slide. So this is the topography of the lot. As we can see, the church is kind of perched up on a hill, and we have the lot just sloping down on both sides into a valley, and then down at the north section of the lot, we have a large general flat area. So one of the challenges when building a house on a slope is of course the slope itself, you know. And one of the ways to battle the slope or to face the challenge of building on a slope is to place your house parallel with the topography lines. This way you have a very flat front area of the house, and then you have it just slopes back into the crawl space area, or in our case, we'd like to do a walkout basement on this lot when we're building it. If you go to the water drains. So these are the natural water drains that are located on the lot. Like I said, it's the whole property. It's essentially a valley. It has slopes on both sides and has that large water drain down the Midwest center. And there's also a water flow or water valley where water flowing is into that wet area at the north of the property. The other water flow is at the adjacent property or at the neighboring property north of 5911. So this is just a general overview of how we were originally planning, pending approval of this variant. This is just a general map of how we were planning to place the structure. So as you can see, this structure, it's placed parallel with the topographical line. So like I said, the driveway will be flat, the front door will be a general flat area, that front porch will be a general flat area, and it'll all just be a gradual slope down into that walkout basement. With this kind of configuration, it's nowhere near any waterways or any wet areas, and based on topographical just line counts, the elevation drop from the front of the house to the rear of the house will be about 10 feet, which based on about an 8-foot ceiling, that's exactly where you want it for a comfortable walkout basement. Now, if you go to the next slide. I call this an alternate plan, but it's really, I don't know if something like this would work. I have doubts that a plan like this would work. So the blue line that we see running on the southeast section of the property, this is what the property line would have to be for to suffice a full acre to the church. A configuration like this shifts the whole building down slope in the north direction and down slope in the west direction as well. And I'd have to clock the house counterclockwise as well. So this would make the structure not parallel. It would make it clocked away from those topographical lines. And placing the structure like this from that front leftmost corner to that back rightmost corner, I'd have, based on topographical countings, I'd have a a crawl space or a basement height of about 16 feet now. Something like this would be very uncomfortable to build a basement house on. It'd be very, very difficult to control the water. It'd be very difficult to run the driveway because with me pushing the house down into the valley, my driveway would have to slope down into the house, or I'd have to lift the house even more, which then would raise that crawl space, that back end crawl space even higher to probably about a 20 or 22 foot. In addition, there's only just one cluster of trees right now belonging to the property. I mean, this is going to be a permanent house for me and my family. I'd like to keep some trees on it. And also that rear elevation or that rear portion of the house, the rear porch, it would start encroaching it wouldn't encroach, but it's starting to get very close to that drainage area, which I've walked those drains after some light rain, and it's very wet there. The ground is very unstable, very soft. So I haven't been there after a heavy rain event, but I can imagine that it'd be even a worse condition.
Sir, if I could I just want to interrupt you for just a minute.
Sir.
So you've done exactly what we asked you to do when you were here last time. Showed us what the property lines would need to look like if you did get an acre. You did get us a letter from the pastor saying that they don't really want an acre. They don't want that much to upkeep for a lot of reasons. And this actually involves two properties, Lot 2 and Lot 1R-2. Is that correct? The church's property and the property next door?
Yeah, the property next door, that's related to the next variance that I have for the access easement.
So, talking about the property next door, Steve, I think the issue that he's having there is he's moving the existing property line over 25 feet, which actually increases the lot area, but it's still not an acre. So it doesn't meet that requirement. So it was less than an acre. Now it's still less, but more than what it was originally. So he's making it a better situation. And evidently this lot must have been grandfathered in because it never was an acre. Is that?
This one currently has a variance.
Or was it done before?
The one that the cursor's on currently has a variance to be less than an acre.
Okay.
But now he's making the church go below an acre, that the church lot would need the variance to go under an acre.
Right. So I just wanted to clarify that the one lot that you said the cursor was on, it really doesn't need because it's already got an acre.
It's already, yes.
Okay. So we can dispose of that one rather quickly. The second lot, because of what you're wanting to build, the lot that you're trying to build on is obviously odd shape, and you've got some fairly significant physical features, the drainage zones and whatnot. I think that certainly makes you eligible to at least discuss a variance. And you've demonstrated that not getting the variance would be a hardship for building your house.
That's right.
So
And it's the easement
I
that's
will-
making it go down, right?
I will entertain a motion to approve this request for both these properties.
Are we going to approve it both at one time? Can we do that?
Well, let's approve one at a time. Let's do
All right, let's do 4B.
4B first.
All right, 4B, I would like to approve the waiver of lot intensity from 1 acre to .76 acres.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Now, 4C.
4C, I'd like to approve the waiver of lot intensity from current .79 to acre to .67 acres due to the addition of an access easement on the south side of the property.
Motion's been made and I'm sorry, did we get a second?
Yes.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any opposition? Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those in opposition? Nobody opposes. Both of your applications are approved.
And
Thank you, board
I would
members.
like to congratulate you on a wonderful presentation. You made it sensible.
Thank you.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
want to be rude, but we've got a lot of things to talk about. And
I understand.
Yours is pretty simple.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, moving on to 5A.
5A is a request of Jason Davids for waiver of front yard setback from 40 feet to 17 feet. Located at 8621 Connor Road, CLT map 036, parcel 130, zone ag in the 7th Commission District.
Are you the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Any opposition to this? If you could state your name and address for the record.
It's Jason Davis. My physical address is 7518 Central Avenue Pike, Powell. This address is 8621 Connor Road.
Right.
The problem I'm having, it's a narrow lot, and I'm having issues with my drain field. I only got just enough room at the bottom of the property for a drain field. So I'm trying to, it's like I said, it's a corner lot, and it's kind of hard to from your side to the front. So I'm trying to, like I said, I'm trying to fit my house in there, and it's a slope down to the bottom of it. It's just an odd shaped lot.
Well, just to clarify, you said it was a corner lot, but technically it doesn't fit the definition that we've struggled with.
I know,
on corner
yeah,
lots.
it's kind
But,
of, like I
you
said.
actually do have two things going in your favor. It's an odd-shaped lot, and it's very narrow.
Yeah.
And you've got topography issues.
Yeah.
Since there's no opposition to this, I will entertain a motion to approve, disapprove. What?
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the front yard setback from 40 feet to 17 feet due to the odd-shaped lot and topography issues.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Did you get the second? Motion's been made and seconded. Any opposition? Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No opposition?
All right.
You got your variance.
There's another, like I said, I'm not really 100% sure that I'm going to actually use this plot plan. Like I said, I'm still trying to coordinate with the health department with my drain field. Like I said, as of now, this is what I'm going to go with, but it could change. I don't know, but it won't be going no more than 17 feet. If anything, it'll be going more or.
Yeah.
Just a small piece of advice. When you get the yes, that's pretty much a good time to stop.
Thank you.
5B.
5B is a request of Jonathan Kelly for waiver of front yard setback from 20 feet to 5 feet at 3909 Shad Road, CLT map 079, Group GA, parcel 01601, Zone CA in the 6th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Any opposition? If you could, step forward, give your name and address for the record.
Hi, it's Jonathan Kelly, and I'm at 3215 Hazelwood Road, Knoxville, Tennessee.
And if you could state your reasons for needing this variance?
Yes, when I initially bought the property, it was formerly a house, but currently an office in the front, and at some point they had built a large garage warehouse building in the rear, and the main building that I was interested in was that rear building to convert it to a recording studio. And then the idea was always to rent out the front building, the office, to a business to sort of defer cost from the property. And then in doing that, we actually rented to a great business owner. She had been looking for a location for her cleaning business, and she's actually here in support today. And so in talking to her, she's been a great renter, and but she was interested in buying that property to have a permanent home for her business. And because I was never particularly interested in that building, in occupying that building, it seems like a good thing for both of us to. It's less that we have to worry about, and it's an opportunity for her to have her business in a permanent place. The buildings are close to each other, but not dangerously so. And again, it's not a variance to change anything. It's the buildings are where they are. So the day-to-day would be just the same as it has been, so.
So are you wanting to subdivide this piece of property?
Yes,
And the reason he can't is because it would require variance, is that correct?
That's correct. He wants to add a lot line between the two structures, which would require a variance for a rear yard and a variance for a front yard.
Mr. Chairman, should we hear both of them together since they are the same property?
I'm sorry?
Should we hear both? He's got this one, he's also got the next one, 5C. Should we hear those together or do we want to hear those separately?
Yes, 5B is the reduction of the
Yes.
front yard.
Yes, please. You're absolutely right. We should deal with them both at the same time. Yes, please read 5C into the record as well.
So 5C is also a request of Jonathan Kelly. It's for waiver of rear yard setback from 16 feet to 5 feet at 3907 Shad Road, CLT map 079, Group GA, parcel 01601, Zone CA in the 6th Commission District.
So you've only got 10 feet between these buildings?
that's right.
Mr. Chair, could
Go-
you explain to me which is the front yard and which is the backyard of this property?
I wish I could.
Well, you have to have a front and you have to have a rear by the zoning ordinance. So our interpretation would be if we add a lot line where the cursor is, that would be the rear of the front building and the front of the rear building. And I'm sorry, my eyesight doesn't allow me to see those addresses.
Well, I mean,
The structures exist today in this configuration. They're not asking to,
but they're all one owner.
yeah, they're all one owner.
This is going to be similar to an issue that's going to come up later. But if we put a lot line between these two buildings, it's only separated by 5 feet or, well, 10 feet physically. For fire safety issues, that's not nearly enough clearance for two separate structures with two separate owners, in my mind.
The fire code would only require 5 feet, correct, Bart? I'm gonna let Bart address that.
Yeah, there are provisions in the building code for when there's two buildings on one lot, that I can look at them together as one building, okay? But when you put the lot line in there, I don't have that protection. I have to look at them individually. And I agree that there would be some code requirement for upgrading both exterior walls to a rated assembly because of the added property line.
So the upgraded structural upgrades would be sufficient to protect both structures, one
Correct.
from another?
And
Correct.
that could be added into the, if we approve the waiver, we could add that as a condition?
Yes, you could add that as a condition of the variance, and then they would need to apply to us and verify that the structural requirements have been met before we would sign the plat.
Very well. Whose district is this?
John.
Mr. Elliott, I will yield to you.
Well, very interesting. Well,
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one more question.
Sure.
How does the lot 3909, how do you access that lot?
There's enough room on the right side of the house structure. There's more than 25 feet for a permanent access easement.
Oh, there is a driveway there that runs back to 3911, which is the big house behind. Is that,
That's I mean, in a
is that your driveway?
no, it's not. But the it's sort of a not from legal standpoint, but a common way that people get around back there. But as, again, from a sort of a legal permanent access easement, there is enough room, and it was on the plat, I believe, that we submitted, that there's enough space there for a permanent access easement.
Steve, have you seen how the access to both structures is going to be handled?
We've not seen a plat. They would still have to meet all the plating requirements of Knox planning before we would sign the plat. So the variance may be granted and they very well could not meet the requirements of subregs.
So John, if you would include the access requirements as
And I do have one more question, maybe somebody could answer. What would be the cost involved in upgrading those,
The code generally doesn't care about money. It just cares about safety, so.
Sure, no, but
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Some churches get stuff done for free. The congregation does it, for example, so it just depends on materials, labor, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
it's not that the
It's
code
a big
doesn't care,
variable.
the code doesn't address cost. That's
Yeah, it's a
probably a
big
better way to say it.
The rear building is concrete block. I don't know if that, so it might fulfill fire rating requirements by itself.
Correct. Well, I will make a motion. Based on the fact that the buildings have existed in this relationship for a long time and they're grandfathered in, I don't really see how adding an imaginary line, so to speak, changes that greatly. I don't want to create a hardship just by adding a line. So I would propose to approve the waiver of the setbacks as long as there is proper access illustrated in the plat going forward.
So
I drive by it weekly, and that is a tight, little, messy situation there, so access would be a big concern of mine.
So I would say that, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that access be provided to both structures and that access be approved by engineering. And that any needed upgrades to the structures, both structures, to meet fire code requirements be made prior to the approval of the plat, that this variance will be approved. Any further discussion? Need a second, sorry. John, you want a second? Actually, you made
I made the motion.
I'll
Yeah.
say,
Made the motion to
depending
approve.
on the variances that have been stipulated for to meet the fire codes and planning.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries.
Thank you.
5C.
5D.
I'm sorry, D.
5D is a request of Samuel Cody Carroll for waiver to allow accessory structures on proposed Lot 2 without a primary structure, waiver of front yard setback from 35 feet to 14 feet, waiver of side yard setback from 25 feet to 9 feet, and waiver of rear yard setback from 25 feet to 13 feet at 646 East Beaver Creek Drive, CLT map 047, parcel 195, property zone RA in the 7th Commission District.
Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition to this? Please state your name and address for the record.
Cody Carroll, 7137 Tipton Lane, 37918.
And can you tell us why you're asking for this variance?
Yeah, my house is shown on the plat where I actually live, 7137. in the bottom. So the new subdivision would essentially be an extension of my current yard, and the other property will be sold, just a flip house. So those two structures are obviously existing, and they would just be used for storage for my personal residence.
Okay, I think we may have been. Yeah, I don't either.
I bought the house, 646 Red Dot, to flip. I'm splitting the lot. Sure. Splitting the lot so that I can keep the existing structures that are there and use for storage and have a bigger yard, because you can see how close the lot line is to the corner of my house. It is pretty much right on the setback of 8 feet. My residence is also used for my business address. I'm a builder. So I'd like to get a gravel road on my side, and I don't have room for that. I originally tried to buy 10 feet of this lady's lot, and she wouldn't sell it. So when she put her house up for sale, I just bought that.
So,
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
well, but let me clarify something. So, if I understand what you're saying, you own 7137 and you own 646.
Yes,
So you own both those pieces of property.
yes.
So there technically is no property line between 7137 and 646 anymore because it's all one owner.
Well, 646 is under the business name, Knox 10 Home. But yes, it's all mine
Who's
right
it deeded to? Whose name's on the deed?
now. Probably mine.
Okay.
I mean, the house is, but I
And
don't know.
646 is deeded in your name.
Tax
That's
records
deeded
show
under
Knox 10 Home.
Home.
So, yeah, I don't know about the actual deed. The tax records
Well,
show.
I'm trying to determine who owns both pieces of property. If one person or one entity
Yeah.
owns both pieces of property,
Yeah.
there is no property line between the two anymore.
There is still a property line. He owns both, but there's still the property line where the cursor's at. My question is, are you eliminating that property line and moving it?
No,
No.
I want to subdivide it. True Line surveyors are doing it. So the yellow line represents the new subdivision, which is pending. The lot in between the two properties with the accessory structures, those accessory structures will probably eventually be demolished, and a new residential structure will be put on that lot at some time.
Okay.
But right now, while I live there, I'm just wanting to use them as storage.
Okay. So he does need the variances as written.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, because as this is set up, basically, even though it is under two names, it's one owner who's dealing with property that he owns from one end to the other. And things are going to change, because if he does subdivide it and the accessory structures are taken down so that another residence can be built there, that would take care of any problems that we had anyway, as I understand it, which is iffy at best, I'll have to say. But I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the waiver to allow accessory structures on proposed Lot 2 without a primary structure, and to approve a waiver of front yard setback from 35 feet to 14 feet, waiver of side yard setback from 25 feet to 9 feet, and waiver of rear yard setback from 25 feet to 13 feet, because it would allow for the splitting of the existing lot and would also deal with the fact that accessory structures without a primary structure become the main buildings.
I will second that.
I have some comments to make. Number one, this does not meet any of the requirements stipulated for accepting a variance. The lot's not narrow, it's not odd-shaped, it's not too steep, and there are no exceptional physical features. So based on those specific criteria, this doesn't meet any of those requirements, and it, based on the code, based on the ordinance, is not eligible for a variance. However, the board's voted, or a motion's been made to accept it.
I would say there is a hardship involved in trying to deal with the lots that already have structures on them and trying to make the best use of the land that is there.
Well, I would say it was a hardship too, if I hadn't heard that we might tear those structures down. We possibly will, they won't be there anymore. They could go away now and we wouldn't have setback issues. So,
We're talking.
you're making you're creating your own variance, which is just not, that's just not how this is supposed to operate.
So to clarify, if he tore down the buildings today, then this could happen without any sort of variance
Right.
tomorrow, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So motion's been made and seconded. If there's any more discussion,
I have a question. If we grant this variance and those structures are removed, will the front yard setback remain in place for the new home? I mean, could the new home be built at 14 foot off the road?
That would be correct. If you reduce the front yard setback today, that would become the new front yard setback. And Mr. Moyers has stepped out. I don't know if you could make that specific to accessory structures only, and the primary structure would still have to meet the front yard setback. That'd be a law director question.
ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, from my point of view, this is a bad idea all the way around.
I do understand that. Are you still going to have to subdivide that property, put a new property line in?
It's pending now.
It's pending.
It's been paid for
Okay.
completely.
I think I'd like to withdraw my motion then.
I was thinking the same thing, yeah. Mr. Lloyd made a very, very good point about a property being built there that could, and I do have an issue with that.
I was under the impression we could do the setback just for the accessory structure.
Mr. Law Director, can they grant a variance that would be specific to accessory structures and not the primary dwelling? So in this instance, could they say that setback reduction is for the accessory structure, not the primary?
Yes, you can do that. Is this the one you said that was temporary? Sorry, I was out of the room.
Yes, he plans to demolish these in the future and build a primary structure on it. The concern is if we reduce the front yard setback today, would it reduce it for the primary structure in the future? But I think if it was for accessory structures only, we could still enforce the primary.
Well, I mean, the other thing that you could do potentially is put a time limit on it as a condition, if you wanted to. So either way.
So,
But I don't know if you were in the room or not, Mike, when I made the point that this doesn't meet any of the requirements of the ordinance. It's not a narrow lot, it's not a shallow lot, it's not a steep lot, and there are no exceptional physical conditions. It doesn't meet the smell test for a variance. You basically created your own variance because you don't want to tear those buildings down now. If you tore the buildings down now, you could locate that lot line in a way that you don't need a variance.
What are the accessory buildings constructed of?
Block.
Block, so they
The
can't be
front one is-
moved
The front
easily.
one is blocked completely with wood trusses. The back one is blocked to about knee high and then wood framing.
Okay.
So Ms. Longmire's withdrawn her motion to approve. I'm going to make a motion that we disapprove this variance because of for the reasons I gave you. It's not a narrow lot, not a shallow lot, not a odd-shaped lot, and there are no exceptional physical conditions.
Could we either do a time limit or, as it sits now, the one accessory structure is already within the setback, it's just grandfathered in. So,
Sir, your request does not meet the requirements for a setback.
Will that affect his property line, the potential property line?
I would say yes. I don't see how we could sign a plat that creates a new nonconformity. I agree with him. The structure today the front yard setback is nonconforming, but when he asked us for a change, now he has to conform. So I would say yes, it will affect. We wouldn't sign the plat because it would be creating new nonconformities. Mike, you concur?
Yeah, and the other thing, we have a rear setback variance for the house as well, at the current location, right? Is that a rear or is that a side?
No. The existing structure, I think we would,
Is that
that's
the one that has an
we would
option
call
for
that a side and allow them, it would only have to be 8 feet.
Yeah.
So let me just explain where I think we are right now. If the property line went where the yellow line is now, and if those two accessory structures weren't there, you wouldn't need a variance. Is that the way it's?
That's correct.
So you got a choice.
But that's what I'm asking. Would it affect the,
If you're planning on taking the structures down, do it now and be done with it.
well, it's in the distant future. I live where I live. My mom lives across the street. I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old, so I'll be there for a while, just convenience factor. But like I said, I was just going to use them just because they are there. I tried to get my lot extended and couldn't. So I was just I keep my trailers. I've got multiple trailers for my business on a neighbor's property up the road. So I was just trying to.
But we've already established you own lot number 646.
Yes.
So you can tear those buildings down today, put that lot line where you're showing it in yellow, and you don't need a variance.
Yeah, it's just
Because they're
money,
main
yeah.
buildings, once they become accessory.
Steve, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I think if I tried to add it, I'd confuse you more.
I don't think that's possible.
A motion's been made to deny this variance. Is there a second?
I'll second that, and I would suggest to accelerate your plans if at all possible, and understand that it's a convenience factor. Unfortunately, we can't take convenience or finances into consideration with that.
Okay, thank you.
We haven't voted.
We haven't voted yet. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of denial of this variance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Yes.
8 for and 1 against. The variance is denied. Moving on to 5E.
5E is a request of Mark Tucker for waiver to extend the agricultural zoning line up to 100 feet northeast so that Lot 2 is entirely zoned agricultural. Property is located at 7555 Foster Road, which is temporary address for the variance. CLT map 014, parcel 083, zone Ag and RB in the 8th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Is there any opposition to this? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Mark Tucker. I'm with Robert Campbell and Associates, and I'm representing Joyce and Roy Mullins on their property at 755 Foster Road. And they're wanting to carve 2 pieces of property out of their farm for their grandkids, and the zoning line runs right through one of them, and they'd like to make all that lot agricultural.
Steve, is there do you know of any reason why we can't change that zone?
No. And I think this is what we want. We want rid of this RB zone. So I think
Yes, we do.
I think I applaud them for coming in and doing this. They could build multifamily there by right today. So I think.
Yeah, I personally would pretty much walk through hot coals to get rid of every RB zone in the county, but this is good. You're doing this. Is it yours?
It's mine, yeah. What can I say?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I would like to approve the waiver to extend the agricultural zoning line up to 100 feet northeast so that Lot 2 is entirely zoned agricultural. And I would add that RB zoning came in a weird sort of way, and it should never have been there in the first place.
I concur with that. Is there a second? I'll second that. I will second this. Any opposition? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Sorry you had to wait so long, but thank you very much. Let's see, this will be 5F.
5G.
G?
5F was withdrawn.
Oh, yes, it was, thank you. 5G.
5G is a request of Lloyd Cowan Parker for waiver of floodplain requirements of a minimum floor elevation from 853 to 851.5, located at 7443 Huffaker Ferry Road, CLT map 098, parcel 13701, zone Ag and F in the 9th Commission District.
You're the applicant?
I'm Lloyd Parker, 7443 Huffaker Ferry Road, Knoxville 37920.
Statements from codes on this?
Just for the record, for per our requirements from FEMA, Knox County Engineering is in opposition to this variance request.
And I'd like to make a statement before you continue here. One of the reasons that codes opposes this, and it's good reason, is that when you waive the floodplain requirements for one house or one structure or one piece of property, it has the potential to affect the flood insurance rates for a lot of people in the area. Okay, so with that in mind, go ahead and give us your.
Well, in 1983, I designed and built the house myself and was in compliance with the 851.5 level. I'm at mile 11.8 on the French Broad River. And at that time, the requirement was to be at or above 500-year regional flood at 851.5. I'm doing an addition there, and I would like to make the addition handicap accessible. I'm 74. I have 2 full knee replacements. I would like to be able to access the living areas of the existing home, which are kitchen and dining. The existing home, the sole bathroom is downstairs. The sole sleeping area is upstairs. So I'd like to be handicap accessible, and I see that as if I can't do that, I see that as a hardship. And I don't see any risk to the public by letting me do it at 851.5. The new FEMA flood level is 852 according to the floodplain development permit from engineering. And somewhere along the way, 1983, they said I had to be at or above 500 year. And now the requirement is that I have to be a foot above that. I don't know when that changed. But I was in full compliance in 1983, and I think I should be able to build my addition and have handicap accessibility. I've been up there for 47 years. I've seen the worst that we can get in 47 years, including Helene, which was probably about 2.5 feet lower than May 1985 flood level we had. In 1985, I shot it with a transit level, and it lacked another 9.5 feet vertically to get to my finished floor. That residence, you would have to, and actually had to canoe to work in 1985. I had to move my truck across because the land drops where my driveway access is. So you've got to get out of there long before, and probably only about 4 feet above Helene would come up to the KUB power transformer adjacent to the house. So you would have to shut your power off, get KUB to shut it off at the road before the water got to that level. No one would be in that house anywhere near the flood level. Like I said, 1985, still lacked 9 vertical feet. Helene lacked probably 12 vertical feet of getting up to the finished floor. So I had flood insurance when I had a mortgage a long time ago. The addition would be with cash. I won't need FEMA flood insurance for that consideration. I understand what you're saying. It may affect other people's flood insurance. But I would not have FEMA. We're going to do it for cash.
Steve, can you shed light on the issue of the flood insurance side?
Yes, in 1983, there was the flood elevation was 851. In 2007 or 8, they updated the FEMA maps. And when they updated those, in order to get us a better community rating, we changed to 1 foot above the 500 year. So the 500 year flood elevation is 852, and then 1 foot above that is 853. So that is where the change does come in.
But it's the community rating which affects.
That is, we currently get a 10% discount on flood insurance for the entire community because of the 1 foot above the 500 year. I don't know what FEMA would think if you grant one variance, but if it becomes a continual thing, FEMA's going to come in and lower our rating, which would lower that discount from 10 to 5%.
And of course, it seems to me that, they've changed it since I was in full compliance, did everything. If they'd asked me to put it a foot above at that time, that would have been easily done. I was in full compliance in 1983, and now the rules have changed and might change again.
So you say you want to do this because of handicap accessibility issues, right? You want
Right,
to make it accessible.
steps up into the addition. The existing home has kitchen, dining, common areas, sleeping areas upstairs, the only bathrooms downstairs. The addition will have a ground level master suite or main level master suite and handicap accessibility to get to kitchen and dining areas.
But your house currently is not accessible because your bathroom's upstairs. I assume you don't have an elevator.
That's correct, and that's the primary reason for doing the addition is to get main living sleeping areas, main level sleeping areas.
On the same level with the bathroom?
With kitchen, living, dining. And if I have to take steps up into the addition.
I'm sorry, is this going to be on the same level with your bathroom?
The addition will have its own bathroom. And there's a main level bathroom as there is, is in the existing structure. But to get from the master bedroom, master bath, on the new addition to get to kitchen dining areas would require steps.
Is this addition going on the riverside or the backside of the house?
Parallel to the river, perpendicular to the existing home.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One problem I have is if someone has built a house and has met all the codes and setbacks and everything that that house is supposed to have, and things change, we don't make that person redo their house.
Yeah, we're not asking to
I
jack up
understand
the
that,
existing.
sir. I understand that. But what I'm saying is, he has met every requirement, and there is a 1 foot difference in what you want and
Foot and a
Well,
half.
foot and a half.
A foot and a half. I understand the necessity of making sure that we don't just add variances for everybody that wants a chance. But I don't see that one variance for a person who has met all requirements for the entire time is going to change the flood insurance. It may and it may not, but who's to know that next year what's going to happen? And I think it will change again because of Helene and because of whatever, everything that changes. But to me, it is a hardship to make him change when he has done everything correct so far.
And the common sense side of me agrees with you. The regulations that I'm required to enforce don't agree with you. So that's.
And I will say this, I've designed and helped build a number of accessible structures. There are ways to overcome grade differences without stairs. You can do it with ramps. An 18-inch difference in elevation is not a very long ramp.
But yeah, well, I mean, the way the existing structure is, you know, I have to come in through an existing doorway, which would be either steps or a ramp. Of course, it's hard to walk up a ramp, just as it's, you know, hard to take a wheelchair down steps.
Hard to walk up a ramp?
Well, I mean,
It is, sir. If you haven't had artificial knees and or hips, a ramp is not a comfortable thing.
I have an artificial hip, so that's not an issue. I don't understand that. I'm afraid that sounds. Whose district is this? Is this my district?
It's the 8th district.
I'm going to make a motion that this variance not be approved. First of all, based on what Steve's telling me about FEMA requirements, and I don't like the idea of potentially increasing other people's flood insurance rates just because of this. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work for me.
I recognize that engineering's job is to suggest that you deny it. I know that's their job. Like I just see it as a hardship to me, and having lived in that place for 47 years, that, you know, the floodplain is only changed to half a foot from 851.5 to 852. The risk, you know, in that, it just seems insignificant. You know?
You could be absolutely correct, but FEMA does what FEMA does, and I have no idea what they would do. I just don't want to give them any reason to do it. Okay?
Well,
So-
if I was in Knox or in Jefferson or Sevier County, it wouldn't be an issue at all. I know Knox County passed that ordinance, and
then it is what it is. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of denial, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition?
Yes. Okay.
Please call the roll.
Curtis Brown.
Deny.
So you're voting aye to, okay. Jonathan Repass.
Aye.
Doug Lloyd.
No.
Ashley Williams.
No.
Cecil Anderson. Aye.
Yes.
John Elliott.
No.
Sherry Garrett.
No.
Rebecca Longmire.
No.
Paul Huff.
I am voting to deny. Motion fails.
4 aye votes. 5 no votes.
According to this, no motion does not carry.
I'd like to make another motion, please, then. I would like to approve the waiver of the floodplain requirements of minimum floor elevation from 853 to 851.5. The state minimum is 844.5. because I see no danger. It is a hardship for a handicapped person to have to try to work with different elevations.
Motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in, call the roll. Just to clarify, yay means to accept the variance and no means to deny. To not accept, excuse me.
Curtis Brown.
No.
Jonathan Repass.
No.
Doug Lloyd.
Yes.
Ashley Williams.
Yes.
Cecil Anderson.
No.
John Elliott.
Yes.
Sherry Garrett.
Yes.
Rebecca Longmire.
Yes.
Paul Huff.
No. Motion carries 5-4. You have your variance.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5H. Is the applicant here?
5H is a request of Randall Loop. It's for a waiver of side yard setback from 12 feet to 6 feet at 7920 Whitcomb Road, CLT map 056, Group IB, parcel 016, property zone RB in the 7th Commission District.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Name is Randall Loop, property owner of 7920 Whitcomb Road, Powell, Tennessee, 37849.
And can you, statement from codes, anything from codes on this?
We don't have any at this time. Well, maybe I should clarify that this is an existing structure. We're not for sure if the garage addition was built with permit or not. It could have been built prior to our office opening. The current structure sits at, how many feet away, Miranda?
6 feet.
6 feet away from the property line. It should be 8 feet. And they're asking to add a second-story addition to the garage, which would then require them to be 12 feet away.
Is there any opposition to this? Can you explain to us why you need the variance?
Yes, the variance would allow us being my family, to proceed with the next steps to put a livable addition on top of the existing garage. The addition, as you can see in the site plan and survey, would be the exact same footprint of the existing garage.
Were you aware that your current structure does not meet the required setbacks?
Not until this process.
Whose district is this?
Mine.
Ms. Garrett?
What are your plans for that additional living space? Are you going to rent it out, or are you going to utilize it for your family? Or?
Yes, utilize it for my family. 4 kids, 9 and under. 3 girls, 1 boy. Please help.
So my question would probably be to engineering next. With a fire rating, with it being that close to the property, there would be, I'm assuming, fire issues that we may need to address?
The setback's proposed at 6, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. No fire separation or no fire rated assemblies there. Residential, single-family dwellings can go up to 5, minimum. Or they can go up to 5 feet fire separation before you need anything.
So he's at 6.
He's at 6, but what about a 2-story building?
2-story doesn't matter. There's no incremental steps the higher you go. It's just 5 feet. That's why you see a lot of the PR zone setbacks at 5
Well,
feet.
why would he need a
That's as
variance?
close as they can go without needing rated assemblies.
So the setback doesn't change if it's a 2-story building?
If he wanted a 3-foot side setback, there would be issues.
No, not per the fire code, Chairman, but per the zoning ordinance, that there is a greater setback the higher you go.
Thank you.
So the fire code doesn't, but the zoning ordinance does, isn't it?
So it's already a non-conforming structure, and we're going to make it another non-conforming structure if we pass this.
It's non-conforming, and I would,
It may have been conforming when it was done.
yes, I would say it's a legal non-conforming structure today, but he can't make it worse without this variance.
So I'll ask again. Why does the zoning ordinance require a larger setback for a two-story building than a one-story building?
That would be a zoning question.
It's much like a lot in the zoning ordinance. I don't have an explanation for you for that. It asks for a greater setback on a two-story building, and I think the RA zone may be the only zone that requires that. I don't. RA and RB is the only two zones that require that.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like a light and air kind of thing with the zoning ordinance where the taller you get, the more you overshadow adjacent structures and it becomes a livability item, like, not necessarily a life safety issue, but more just a livability items.
I understand that your neighbor has given.
Yes, I was getting ready to chime in. For what it's worth, in the application is the approval of Glenn Stafford, which is my neighbor, directly adjacent to where this addition will be going.
And I would add that I concur with Mike. I think it was more of a privacy type thing from the greater setbacks in the RA zone, because they do require 10,000 square foot lots. So the intent is larger lots. The bigger you get, I guess, the larger setbacks.
I'm going to make a motion to.
Yes, please.
Get back to it, to approve the waiver of the side yard setback from 12 feet to 6 feet to allow for more livable living space in the existing footprint of the garage.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And I'll register my vote as no. Motion carries.
10-4, thank you.
Good luck with your project.
5I.
5I is a request of Benjamin Valdez for waiver of front yard setback on Chisholm Trail from 35 feet to 28 feet at 8301 Santa Fe Trail, CLT map 133, Group AA, parcel 002, Zone RA in the 4th Commission District.
Are you the applicant?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Benjamin Valdez, 8301 Santa Fe Trail, Knoxville, 37919.
Any statements from codes?
We don't have any.
Before you start, this is another one of those corner lot issues that we've been plagued with for, I don't know, forever.
Oh.
Your address is on Santa Fe Trail, so is that, not that it's written down anywhere, but is that where your mail is delivered?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm simply asking to have the garage extended 15 feet there. The extension is not out of character with the neighborhood. My neighbor directly across the street from me, from Santa Fe Trail, she's got she's got the exact same thing right there.
So I'll not wanting to deprive you of your time, but I think we can dispose of this fairly quickly. Because this is a corner lot and we have dealt with these things ad nauseum over the last year. And he gets his mail off Santa Fe Trail. He's wanting to put this against Chisholm Trail. Technically, in my mind, you can't have two front yards. I don't have two fronts of my house. So I will entertain a motion from whose district?
From my district.
Ashley?
I've driven through there. I don't see any issue with this. I'd like to make a motion to accept the waiver of the front yard setback on Chisholm Trail from 35 feet to 28 feet.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any additional commentation or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? You have your waiver.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. 5J.
5J is a request of J. Combs for waiver to extend the floodway zoning line up to 100 feet to match current FEMA floodway. The property is located at 3221 Solway Road, CLT map 89, parcel 118, zone PR and F in the 6th Commission District.
Is the applicant here? While he's coming forward, Steve, this is just to make lines on a map match up, is that?
That's correct. The FEMA, there's the FEMA floodway zone, and then there's the floodway zone from the zoning ordinance. At one time, they aligned, and as you heard earlier, the maps were updated. The FEMA floodway either expanded or moved over, and the floodway zone doesn't align with it. The request is to align the floodway zone with the FEMA maps.
Can you give us your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. Bailey Lane with Robert Campbell and Associates, representing J. Combs, 3221 Solway Road.
Before you start, what's his reason for wanting to do this other than it makes sense?
He's wanting to put some buildings on the lot, and the way the current flood zone or the F zoning stands now, he can only get one, and I think he's wanting to put 2 houses on the lot, or at least subdivide it to make 2. But as it stands, the buildable area is extremely small, only allowing for 1. And moving the FEMA line, moving the F flood zone to match the FEMA line would allow for more buildable area.
Apparently, there's no reason why we can't do this. Is that correct, Steve?
I don't see a reason why. And as I said, through the UDO, we'll do away with this flood zone and make FEMA an overlay zone in the PR district, so.
Whose district is this?
6.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the waiver to extend the floodway zoning line up to 100 feet to match the current FEMA floodway, so that they can get better use out of their property.
Second.
This motion's been made and seconded. I have one question. Will this put the 2 lines together throughout the entire property? You don't need more than 100 feet to get them to line up, do you?
I believe on the plat map, no, we don't need the full 100 feet, no.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. You have your variance. 5K.
5K is a request of Heather Manning to appeal Knox County's ruling that chickens are not allowed in the RA zone located at 113 Irwin Drive, CLT map 057, Group IB, parcel 005, property zone RA in the 7th Commission District.
Is the applicant present?
Chair, as she's coming forward, has the heat been really getting cold in here?
I don't know. I have no idea. And before you begin, I just want to clarify one thing. Your variance is you're challenging the engineering interpretation of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
That's what it says.
Chairman, I think she came in late. Were you here to be sworn in?
No, I was not.
I think she needs to be sworn
All
in.
right, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right.
I also have 3 letters from my,
Address, name, and
Heather
address.
Manning, 113 Irwin Drive in Powell, Tennessee, 37849.
And based on what I just said, you're challenging their interpretation of the zoning ordinance. You need to tell us why they were wrong.
We just moved here. Literally just moved to Tennessee, just moved to Powell. And as soon as I got here, I got hit with a, you can't have your animals. Got rid of my pigs, mini pigs, got rid of my mini goats 2 weeks ago. And now we have all we have left is just our chickens, which provide eggs for our family. And I have letters from all my neighbors because the way our street is part of Irwin is agricultural and the other part is residential. The part of the street that I'm on is, I guess, considered residential.
low residential. And all of my neighbors, if you look at the house directly behind me, Lot 6 and Lot 3, they used to be zoned agricultural. Both of them have horse stables still on their property. And I have letters from 3, house 6, I want to say it's 8 or 9, and then a house a little bit further down on Irwin. All my neighbors have no issues with me having chickens. A lot of our neighbors have chickens. They're like, I don't know, you moved in and you just got picked and you were the one that was told you have to get rid of all your animals. So I'm just fighting to be able to keep my chickens, be able to, them have their eggs to feed my family, and none of my neighbors have issues with them. And I have the letters.
That's fine. I still haven't heard anything about why, I'm sorry, first of all, can somebody pull up the RA zoning do's and don'ts, shall we say? And just so you know, in Knox County, the zoning ordinances specifically say what you can do. Okay? If it's not listed as something you can do in that zone, then you can't do it.
That's what my realtor unfortunately made the mistake, because he's like, I would never have sold you this house, because we looked in Blount County, we looked here, and he's like, I never would have sold you the house. Like, I knew you had these animals. It was a priority to keep them. So that's what code enforcement as well told me. It's just what we're not understanding is if I live in Knox County, I could have 6 hens, no rooster, and I just follow all the rules that are listed.
You
But
may
yet
have,
living in the county,
you may have relief coming by the county commission in some future. They're working on it. They're thinking about changing it.
That's
but right now, as it stands today, the zoning ordinance does not allow livestock, chickens, whatever, in that zone. I'm sorry, Mike, were you going to?
You meant the city of Knoxville, you could have.
Yes,
yeah, Knoxville City, you
You're
can
right,
have
and that's
chickens.
because they passed an ordinance specifically allowing that in the city of Knoxville, which we have not done.
And Mr. Chairman, I would like to clarify, we're the hunted here, not the hunter. We don't go out and hunt down non-compliant lots. We receive complaints. If her neighbors have chickens and she wishes to complain on them, we'll certainly go out and handle them as well. But we don't go out and look for someone with chickens and say you're under violation. We get hunted down and we go out and handle it.
And I think I may have forgotten to ask if there was any opposition to this present. There is. Okay. So apparently somebody doesn't agree with you about no opposition to the chickens.
Are your
But-
chickens free range?
No, there is a fence, but they do fly over. But we've already discussed with our neighbors about clipping their wings. And the property that they go into is actually one of the people who wrote a letter and that used to be considered agricultural. And she freely welcomes them. She's both her and my neighbor that owns the 7 acres to my right. But we thought about following the rules like the county said for the clipping the wings and all that stuff. But there is a fence for them to stay into.
Chickens tend to go where they want to go. But we did get letters from people who are not thrilled with your chickens because and chickens, scratch up. And they get in yards and they leave messy things. Because, yes, I've had ducks and chickens and goats and all that, but I live in the county and I have a big farm. So when you live in a subdivision, it really makes a difference because
Which we weren't aware we even lived in a subdivision because it's an acre lot. I didn't know. Like I said, this is different than Florida, so we didn't realize we were considered a subdivision until this issue started happening. And I went to my neighbors and was asking them. And like I said, they were all agricultural and their homes were changed to residential. And the house is on the other side of the street. And that's why they said, they're like, if this doesn't work, they're like, bring your animals to our house. They're like, we have no problem. We live across the street from you. We are technically considered agricultural. We will take your animals. But that doesn't.
One of the options we gave her was to rezone to ag. because she has 1 acre, she could rezone to ag, but the new land use plan, the place type for her parcel does not recognize agricultural uses. It does not recognize agricultural zones, so.
That would be kind of a spot zoning though, wouldn't it?
It would be a down zoning from RA back to ag, but like I said, the place type doesn't allow her to rezone.
But like I said, the county commission, I think I'm saying this correctly, they are considering a change to the ordinance to allow, I don't know what you're going to call it, non-commercial livestock.
We've had 3 county commissioners request that we look into adopting a domesticated chicken ordinance. The city of Knoxville has one, she's correct. It allows 6 hens. There's some pretty stringent requirements to have those, so we are working on that, but the ordinance we have today does not allow her to maintain these in the RA zone.
So you may get relief in the future, but currently engineering is interpreting the ordinance correctly. And who's?
It's mine.
I'm sorry, yes, we need to hear from the opposition, just to understand. I mean, I know why I wouldn't want chickens, but let me hear what, yeah, just have a seat. Well, you have some time left, so if you want to, for rebuttal.
Good morning. My name is Scott Smith, 709 Irwin Drive. It is true that at one time there property in the area was agricultural, but that was over 40 years ago. We have been planned residential for over 40 years. Currently, all the neighborhood, this is called the Horace Irwin Idlewild neighborhood. Currently, all properties in the house, the developments range anywhere from built in the mid-50s to built 2 years ago. It's a wide variety of houses. All are planned residential with the exception of one 44-acre tract, which is a green zone. And other than the 44-acre tract, which is a green zone, everything is planned residential. There are currently no livestock, even on the 44-acre tract. The Mannings moved in or purchased the house on October the 29th. Immediately upon arrival, there was free ranging of goats and pigs and chickens on the lawn. It dwindled down to only the chickens only 2 weeks ago when the red and white sign went up. That's the only time that the other livestock went away. And there are more than 6 chickens. There's more than a dozen chickens right now. And so we just ask, we are an older subdivision, we're an older neighborhood, but we want to have the same rights as people that live in a new subdivision. We moved there for a reason. We want to keep the same standards, and we appreciate your consideration on that. Thank you.
Is there any other opposition?
I was for her.
But before we, I'm sorry, ma'am, are you coming to speak in opposition or, yes, okay, please come.
She left, so.
She probably had to. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Shirley Smith, and I live at 721 Irwin Drive. I am the longest homeowner on Irwin Drive. Everybody else, the original owners, have passed away, and either their children or new homeowners have come in. They've renovated the houses. We're very proud of our area. It's a very pleasant place to live. Our neighbors are neighbors. And when this family moved in, like the previous person said, they moved in with free-range goats, pigs, and chickens. And contrary to what the lady said, her neighbors complained that the goats were in their garages, the pigs were digging up their flowers, the goats were eating the flowers. And my opinion is they moved in and they had no respect for our community. And I just ask that that you deny this request and let us have our peaceful community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other opposition? I think the applicant may have left. You came in support of her application. If you would like to come and speak, please give your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Dustin at 324 Lauren Circle.
Pull the mic up, please. Say your name and address again.
Dustin, 324 Lauren Circle.
What's your last name, Dustin?
McCarley. When I get off work, when my daughter's around, we ride our skateboard down the road. We're always outside playing. I've seen the pigs out one time. Me and my daughter, we're always in the neighborhood playing ball, doing something. I've never seen the goats out of the yard. I've never seen the chickens out of the yard. I've pet the pigs, the goats, the kids in the neighborhood like them. And up Lauren Circle, we've not had any problems out of her or family or her animals. We're all in support of it. That's all I had to say.
Very well. I would say this. Do you know the applicant?
I do not.
No. Well, is there anyone here with the applicant? I am. I would make this one suggestion. Steve, can she talk to you when we take a break for lunch and find out who on county commission she could talk to in support of the change?
Yes, I would gladly share that information with her. She could reach out to them and.
My suggestion to you, ma'am, and for the applicant would be to talk to county commissioners that are trying to get the ordinance changed, and go that route. But currently, engineering is interpreting their ordinance as it stands today correctly, apparently, based on what I hear.
And
at this time, I'll entertain a motion to, whose district is this?
It's mine.
Go ahead, Sherry.
I would love to be able to say that she can have chickens, but what's before us today is she is appealing the ruling of our codes and engineering department that they have made a decision in error, and I do not find that to be the case. So I'm going to make a motion to deny the appeal to Knox County's ruling that chickens are not allowed in the RA zone. And I would ask the applicant, I know she's left, but please tell her she can contact her own commissioner. I do know I've spoken to her, and she is on board with changing this ordinance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Did you get the second? Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further comments? All those in favor of denying the variance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
I'd like to abstain in the chicken case.
One abstention. Motion carries. Moving on to, we have time, 5L.
5L is a request of James Quick to appeal Knox County Planning Commission's approval of Development Plan Number 11-A-24-DP located at 6701 Roberts Road, CLT Map 022, Parcel 00514, Zone PR in the 8th Commission District.
That's, are you the applicant? Or yes, the applicant? Who's the applicant? If you could, if you could step forward.
He's the applicant, you're the opposition.
Actually, the applicant, James Quick, could not be here today because he works with Anderson County Schools, so I'm representing Maury Bend subdivision. My name is Brian Harris.
Okay, so before you go on, I must tell you that We will break for lunch at noon. You probably won't be finished with your presentation by then, but unfortunately, we have to break at that time. So we'll take a 30-minute break. You can come back and finish up after lunch if not done beforehand. Go
Get
ahead.
some chicken.
Yes, we are, as a matter of fact.
So anyway, my name is Brian Harris, and I'm speaking on behalf of James Quick, who couldn't attend today. My wife, Denise, and I reside at 8407 Maribin Lane in Maribin Estates. It's a small 3-street community in Corryton, North and East Knox County, with 1-story brick cottage homes, as well as custom 1- and 2-story homes, averaging around 1,800 square feet. I'm here today to voice concerns on behalf of our neighbors regarding the proposed development of the Simmons Farm property. Through feedback from residents, we believe this plan would be detrimental to the character of our community, infrastructure of the existing roads, utility demands, increases in rural school populations, and the surrounding rural environment. Assuredly, we as a community are not prepared for this type of growth. Even in the short time that we've lived there, we've seen traffic increase significantly and are concerned the proposed development would make things much worse. Specifically, 12 homes, including ours, directly border the Simmons Farm property. Every day, we have enjoyed firsthand beauty and tranquility of this land, which has become home to wildlife such as deer, turkeys, foxes, and even a bald eagle. The small pond in the center of the property used to attract flocks of birds and ducks. Almost not a day still goes by, and even this morning, where 7 to 10 deer were grazing in the meadows. And to me, that's a truly iconic Northeast Knox County beauty. When we moved here in 2021 to our forever home, we noticed on the tax records that the purchased farmland was designated a conservation zone. We were told that development would be limited and difficult to achieve. Now we face a situation where the land's been stripped and cleared for a high-density development, not just a development. On Maribin Lane, the 12 homes in our community that are facing the proposed development included large buffer zones between our homes and the Simmons Farm, their lot fencing. With these buffers now removed, the development is destined to press up directly against our properties, and even so, the developer has marked the rest of this tract as future development, with an obvious intent to destroy the remaining beauty, wildlife habitat, consistency, and character of our community and the surrounding rural area. This is a careless and unreasonable plan. I'd like to close my remarks by conveying an urgent plea from the residents of Maribin Estates for this board to reconsider and even ultimately deny the development proposal in its current form for this planned community. As a zoning board, please for a moment, please place yourselves, your residences, and your families in our situations. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn the remaining time over to Kevin Murphy.
Kevin, before we start, go ahead and sit down. Before you get started, can we clear up I'm sorry.
That was the first thing I want to do, yes.
Can we
Mr.
clear
Chairman.
up the issue between rural conservation and rural living? Everybody is saying this is rural conservation. I'm told by planning and zoning that it's actually rural living.
Kevin Murphy, 4508 Murphy Road. Mr. Chairman, you are correct. It is rural living place type, and I actually got that corrected in the handout that's coming around, and I've updated my remarks. So there's some stuff in my letter that does not pertain to the rural living place type.
Thank you.
So my apologies for that. There is a whole lot of discussion about place types during advanced Knox, and rural living and rural conservation are very similar sounding. This is a development plan submission. In this case, you're sitting in the seat of the Planning Commission. For the planned residential zone, the zoning ordinance states that the Planning Commission shall review the conformity of the proposed development and shall recognize principles of good civic design, land use planning, and landscape architecture. The Planning Commission may impose conditions regarding layout, circulation, and performance of the proposed development, and may apply deed restrictions. So there are minimum requirements that are stated, like lot setbacks and things in the zoning ordinance, but as planning commission, you're also charged with exercising, recognizing principles of good civic design. So you have an authority and a responsibility and an obligation to look at this with a critical eye. And this is not a trivial matter for Northeast Knox County. The approval or denial of development plans, you may approve one that's been shown where the plan is in use or in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and the general plan, which is our comprehensive land use plan. And you may deny a development plan or where the above cannot be shown or where it would have an adverse character of the impact on the character of the neighborhood. And the applicant has a burden of proof to show you that this plan is in harmony with the zoning ordinance and the general plan. I don't believe this is in harmony with the general plan, and that you should deny the approval deny their application and have them come back with something that is in harmony. So this, in order to be compliant with the general plan, you need to be compliant with the place type in the comprehensive plan. This is designated the rural living place type. One of the things I was thinking through is when the consultants first talked to the planning commission with the draft plan, in that workshop, the consultants talked about the major themes, and major themes surfaced through years of public input and process was schools, the need for housing to be affordable, and a strong desire to preserve rural character and farms. So those, let that as, there's a lot of public input, and let that be a driver for you. If you look at the rural living place type, which is in the handout, you can see it states that rural living areas are primarily made of a single family residential within a rural setting. So that's what the vision was. On that place type, you can see pictures of example character. These pictures that are there depict larger lots, agriculture, barns, other outbuildings, produce stands, things that are very rural in type. So the character of this neighborhood, and of the area, the neighborhood where this is being proposed, is very much agricultural and rural. On the southeast, and you'll probably hear a lot used to justify this, this is next door to a subdivision. Well, it's a smaller subdivision, Mary Ben Acres, which was approved more than 20 years ago. And in the succeeding 20 years, there's not been any other subdivisions out there. Mary Ben Acres is the last subdivision as you go out Washington Pike. So you're towards Granger. So you're on the frontier out there. I included in my letter Exhibit C, which is an aerial photograph from KGIS, and it kind of zooms out and looks at the macro area. And you can see that you have Mary Ben Acres and there's a TVA substation, but there's not much else there. It's all fields and farms. So that, I think, if you're looking for character, that's it. Mary Ben Acres was built out at about, on the acreage it has a build out density about 3.6 units per acre. The proposed development plan in front of you puts 141 units on 26.5 acres. That's a build out for that section of 5.3 units per acre. And there's nothing in Northeast Knox County that's built out that densely in terms of appearance. We had a community meeting last week in Northeast Knox on Tuesday night, and we asked people what they thought and about community defining characteristics and of that area. And they said things like farms, forest and woods, views of house mountains, and really large lot residential homes. Character can be defined. I will give this handout in a little bit. This is some stuff from the East Knox Community Plan where they asked people what they thought community character was for that area. So it's got pictures, and it's got phrases they use. So I'm going to pass that out and ask you to keep that for the record. And it can be implemented through design. But in order for it to be implemented, you need an applicant to actually propose and give you something to consider. This application in front of you is just a subdivision layout. It's a engineering plan for how they would set up the lots and nothing more. It has no design characteristics. It has nothing that depicts the style of buildings. There is no landscaping screen. There's no landscaping requirement in this plan. There's nothing. All you have is a lot layout, and that's it. So that's the only thing that they've proposed, which meets the floor of what the planned residential zoning ordinance requires. That's all the ordinance says. It says there, consider things like amenities like open space, parks, community facilities and all that. It doesn't require it. And so in this case, the applicant has just done just the bare minimum to there. They did have an opportunity to propose a development plan that could be a showcase of how to do these developments out here. In November, I asked if they'd be willing to postpone in front of Planning Commission so that the community could meet with them and give them some input and everything. And I was told, well, we're behind schedule, so nope, no meeting. And then at Planning Commission, the applicant told the planning commissioners when they asked about community engagement, the applicant told Planning Commission, well, we had community engagement at the rezoning hearing. Now, if you've been to rezoning, the normal thing that happens there is you're told, this is just rezoning, we're going to come back with a development plan. So there's an expectation, the development plan wasn't at the rezoning meeting, so there's no ability to actually have community engagement about that plan. We really wish they had engaged, but they haven't. And then finally, in my handout, I've got an example for you of what happens when you have a development plan that doesn't have any requirements. In there, I've got one from 3B21-UR. That was the Meadows of Shannon Valley back in 2021. In our community, we attempted to engage with the applicant. We engaged with Engineering and Public Works. We did a lot of things, but Planning Commission didn't impose any requirements. They approved a development plan similar to what you have. There was no requirement for building style, landscaping screens, or anything. And so I've included a picture of what actually got built out at the Meadows of Shannon Valley. It's a bunch of backyards that back up right onto it, which is really a shame because across the street, they did another development, Shannon Valley Farms, which at least had a landscaping screen. It's just, if you don't put the requirement in, they can say, oh, we promise, we'll think about that, but they won't do it unless you put in requirements. So finally, what we're asking, the worst outcome, I think, is for all of you to have to sit up here and try and make a bunch of conditions today. I've been in your shoes. It's really hard to try and grind through the design process behind the stand. And that's a bad outcome for the applicant, the community, and yourselves. So instead, we're asking that, we encourage you to either deny their application, so overturn the Planning Commission's decision, or potentially postpone it for at least 60 days, and then give them a list of things that you want to see them fix. So things they could fix might be things like to reconfigure the building layout to save some of the best farmland soil for potentially some agricultural uses. They've got, all this is built up on the front, which is entirely on prime and locally important farmland soil. They could have to prepare a tree preservation plan, have that done by a certified arborist, present that, then provide that, and then the grading and building permits could be tied to implementing that plan. I checked with UT Extension, the foresters there, and they said, yes, this is absolutely something that can be done. And I included an excerpt from Penn State Extension in my letter, which the UT Extension folks looked and said, wow, that's a really great way to go about this. So you have a roadmap for that. Third, could require some wooden fencing along Roberts Road or some sort of a landscape screen. We met with another community in Knox County that is, or in Northeast Knox on Babley and Harris roads recently, and they were talking about how they had been graded, right up until the property lines, and so a number of them are now worried about root damage for trees that are on their property, but then the developer next door is now graded right up into that. So you could put a non-grading buffer around the perimeter of the property. That could be appropriate. And finally, you could require the applicant to submit design standards for proposed buildings. Wording it that way for submitting them, you're not imposing what you think the requirement is, but you're giving the applicant an opportunity to engage with the community, engage with their district commissioner, and freedom to come up with some standards. And then, most importantly, then you've got something to look at and say, okay, does this make, is this the character or not? But today, since they haven't proposed anything, you don't have anything to look at, and that's a real shame. So we're asking you to give them some things that could really help drive them to improve this application. These are pretty reasonable. As I like to tell people, our challenge in the county is that our development requirements are really down on the floor. They're very minimal. Planning Commission generally is reluctant to apply higher development requirements because a lot of those people are in that development world too, and they don't want to see that happen. So we are now here at you, the Board of Zoning Appeals, asking you to take a really critical eye out here. And with that, thank you very much for your time.
Opposition now has 15 minutes.
Chairman, do you want me to get started, or are you on break for lunch right in the?
Is lunch here yet?
I don't think so. I think they're out waiting on it.
It is
Lunch
here?
is here?
Yeah. If you don't mind, until waiting after we have lunch, we'll promise not to go to sleep.
No worries.
Couldn't go to sleep in this room as cold as it is anyway. We will recess until 12:30.
Thank you, Chairman.
3 till.
Call the meeting back to order. I think we were about to hear opposition to the opposition, if that makes sense. Yeah, restate your name just for us so that we can remember.
Josh Sanderson, Smith Built Homes, 4909 Ball Road. This is my first time in front of this board as my tenure at Smith Built. So I'm not sure exactly what to say, but we'll answer all your all's questions. The first gentleman that got up here from Mary Ben, who bought his home in 2021, Mary Ben was rezoned and developed in the early 2000s, and on his deed that references his plat, this farm is labeled future development. The developer even stubbed out a road to Mary Ben and had every intention of buying this farm and adding on another phase of Mary Ben. Furthermore, KUB stubbed their sewer out to it, knowing that capacity would be there. So ever since 2003, when their plat was recorded, this farm has been on a lot of developers' radar because it's got checks all the boxes. The only box it didn't check was zoning. We got it rezoned in Planning Commission February 8th of 2024 and went in front of County Commission of March 25th, 2024. We got PR zoning. Our PR zoning was way before any place type. I didn't even know what a place type was when we bought this farm. So place types do not, this zoning supersedes and nullifies any of the advanced Knox. This was all done prior to advanced Knox. That's why we bought the farm, that's how we zoned it, that's how we designed it, that's how we have vested interest in it. We got 2 units an acre. I feel like we lost at zoning. I feel like we should have agreed because Mary Ben next door is zoned 3 units an acre, but we didn't fight. We designed it exactly how the PR plan shows us that we can design it. We did meet with Mary Ben, and the only thing they said, do not connect to our neighborhood. We said, okay. And we have 2 entrances into this subdivision, even though we don't have to. I don't know what else to tell you. This would be another affordable development for Smith Built Homes, and just like we sold out Shannon Valley and those homes are double their value, we anticipate this being the same thing. Again, the place types have no bearing on this land, and the Mary Ben, everyone in there knew it was going to be a future development. So I'll stick around for any questions.
I have a question. Sidewalks, please.
Yeah, we don't have to put in sidewalks, but we, as Smith Built Homes, desire it as an amenity, and we do. We especially have kids and strollers, and we put sidewalks in.
I have a question as well. I'm not sure if it's for you, sir, or whoever, but there's been a discrepancy. Somebody made reference to 5 homes per acre, and then I just heard a reference to 2 homes per acre. That's a major difference there.
Yeah, our zoning is 2 units per acre. You can see on the KGIS map there. So
That's what you plan?
That's what we got.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify. You've got 70, the whole parcel is 74 and 3/4 or thereabouts acres,
Correct.
right? But you're only developing houses on 26-something acres, right?
Correct.
So your density is based on the full 74 and 3/4 acres of the entire lot.
Correct.
So because you're clustering all the homes together on the 26 acres, the balance of the property has to remain open?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. One other question. I'm not sure who gave us the pictures that went around. Does anybody know where those are?
He did.
Oh, okay. So you can't answer the question.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
They do have 7 acres of, 7 units of remaining density on the project, but there can be no more subdividing or lots created without a new development plan. So this is what you have until a new development plan is approved. So technically, they could create 7 large lots on the back. I doubt they're going to do that, but that.
Or around the cul-de-sac if they want.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
And I had a question, and this is probably for planning. You were rezoned PR before the advanced Knox passed, but your development plan wasn't submitted until after advanced Knox passed, or am I incorrect on that?
No, but the growth policy plan strictly states that PR does not, we do not have to abide by the new growth policy plan or the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Could we have the development plan back up, please? I was checking for corner lots, just for you to know.
I counted about a dozen.
We'll label the driveways on those so there's no discrepancies.
14 to 15. I have a question. So what is the density in that plan that I'm looking at there? How many homes are we talking about?
It's 2 units per acre. It's a 74, I believe, is our concept.
If you're looking at just the net density of that area, it's probably closer to 5 dwelling units per acre. But the full property itself, the development is less than 2 dwelling units per acre if you consider the entire property.
So I guess the question I have, can you clarify what the process would be should this developer or future developer decide to add or want to pursue adding additional lots in? Because it seems it's positioned so that there could easily be like a phase 2 with all this empty land.
Yeah, so you'll see those gaps on that, on the far left road. I get technically that's the north. You see those gaps. We anticipate those being driveways and selling, maybe parcel off like a 5-acre tract and selling it maybe to someone like you, and you decide where your house goes and you connect your driveway to that road. So we have left it where we don't have to install any more roads or utilities, and we can parcel off or draw property lines up to 7 more and sell you the land. And then you can build your house and driveway how you see fit.
Is there an avenue though to extend this development to be just as dense as we're seeing on the right-hand side?
No, the growth policy plan would not allow him to exceed 2 dwelling units per acre. So he could, under the current growth policy plan, he can't ask for more density out there than what he currently has. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I was just going to just reiterate what the applicant already, or maybe Steve mentioned earlier that, in order to even do the additional lots that they are allowed to do today, they would have to come back to the planning commission for a new development plan application, potentially a concept plan as well, depending on how that's all worked out. But there'll still be another public review of those additional lots.
Since Jim walked in, I know he wants to speak about the roads and things, don't you, Jim? About Emory and Roberts and that.
Here's that one's not
Yes, Ms. Longmire, do you have specific questions, or I can just kind of talk a little bit about what the applicant's going to do in partnership with Knox County?
That would be good.
Yeah, we looked at the road width along Roberts Road based on the anticipated traffic volume of this particular subdivision and the existing traffic out there. We didn't anticipate, or we didn't foresee an issue with the existing width of the roadway as it exists today. However, at both ends of the roadway where most of the conflicts exist, at Emory Road, which is a state facility, the state had identified that their development did require a left turn lane for westbound traffic. And then obviously the intersection of Roberts at Washington Pike, which those that aren't familiar with it knows it's very unique. It's offset in really the worst possible way. So what we worked with Smith Built, and they were agreeable to this, was to do two things. One, to implement the improvements that TDOT required, which is the westbound left turn lane on Emory. And then we worked up a cost estimate for them to construct a left turn lane on Washington Pike at Roberts. Obviously, we don't want that left turn lane constructed in its current configuration because of those interlocking left turns. Essentially, people are fighting in the same spot for that left turn space. So Smith Built has agreed to give us the funds in the amount of that estimate, and then we will come in and do a larger project to fix that larger issue of the intersection offset and align them up into more of a four-way intersection, and hopefully, most likely install probably something like a roundabout, and use the resources that they give us to start the design and right-of-way acquisition, and within hopefully 3 to 5 years have a roundabout up in place up there, and then those two conflict points on either end of Emory or Washington Pike will be much more accommodating for the growth of traffic.
Will you provide a learning video for people how to use a roundabout?
Yes, don't go left in them. A lot of people still want to go left. You can't go left in a roundabout. But yeah, so we do believe that the partnership we have with Smith Built should address any traffic concerns that this subdivision would create.
Please, yeah, you have time left. 7 minutes, I believe.
Brian Harris, Mari Ben. Just 2 points. First, at no time did they reach out to us. They may have talked to 2 or 3 people, but that's not the community. And the community needs to have their voice heard by Smith Built for this project. And the other thing is, I'm kind of simple to the fact that 2 units per acre is 2 units per acre, not 5. And again, that's not going to be in compliance or the way this whole community should look. I'm going to say I've seen Smith Built developments and I'm not impressed.
Kevin, did you have anything else you wanted to speak on? We received before and after pictures before this started. Yes. Can someone tell me who is that from you?
I took those with my drone.
Yeah, please come. The before picture looks like it was. Can you zoom out of the development plan there just a little bit? Appears to be taken from the north looking south.
Correct.
And the after appears to be looking.
That's looking from our viewpoint.
From east to west.
Yeah, can you show me the?
Yeah, come on up.
Yeah, that's from the road. There's our home.
Right. So, okay.
These are a little bit, but everything's gone. Now everybody hears all the noise, and I believe there at least needs to be landscaping screens. Everything is coming up to. There's our subdivision, and the houses. Everything would butt up to that, right there.
And Could I get the gentleman from Smithville to come look at these pictures and explain something to me? Just to clear up what if that's the edge of the existing, whatever it's called, subdivision, how far back does your proposed development go to?
Roughly this cul-de-sac.
Right about there?
Correct.
Okay. So it would essentially be here in this photo?
That'd be correct.
So I have a question. Why did you clear all these trees beyond where you're planning to build?
We're farmers. We run 13 head of cattle right now. We're going to probably farm it before we develop it for a little while.
You have to explain why those few trees would
Pardon me?
stop you from farming the rest of that property. It was farmed before when those trees were there.
You have the property there on, next to, is it Washington Pike and Adair? Is that the, and you cleared that and you planted corn?
Yeah.
Is that correct? And that's why it was cleared, because certain crops you have to clear.
But with
And I would say
With
that
the exception of a few trees right here, this property is clear.
well, it wasn't. If you had seen it before that, it was very overgrown. It had not been farmed in
It was
several
it
years.
was a dirty farm. We cleaned it up. The family quit taking care of
This was taken in
it.
2022. Wasn't that long ago?
Been taken at a good time, because I go by it about every day. And the people who owned it, basically, the older people died. The Simmons did.
Yes, they did.
And it was given to their children, and that's one reason it was sold, to divide the inheritance. But it went for several years without being farmed, and it had overgrown. I'm not saying it was bad, but it was overgrown. And that is a beautiful picture, though.
And Chairman, another thing to point out, if someone pulled up the actual aerial, there is a TVA substation that hums. You talk about destroying farmland and not wanting to be next to it. That thing hums. That's a substation second to no other in Knox County. And you hear it, and it is a problem.
So do you plan on farming this property after it's developed?
No. Once we have once the use of the land is turned over to residential, it will no longer be classified as farmland.
Can we look at a historical aerial? I'm just trying to determine the stewardship of the land. What year is that? 2019. All those, I don't know if they're fence lines or whatever with trees on them.
Another thing to point out, those fence lines, we had to re-subdivide the parcels because the cousins and the brothers had different pieces. So we took some of the sisters, some of the brothers, some of the cousins to create this parcel. So we had to tear out some of the farmland or some of the tree lines and the fence lines to create a contiguous farm. This is a pieced together farm.
You got to explain to me why you got to take out fence lines and tree lines.
To make it one big farm, sir.
Sorry?
To make it one large farm.
But you're only using 26 out of 74 acres to develop houses.
So we cleared it intentions to farm.
Do you farm it now?
All 74 acres.
Do you farm it now?
No, we have not planted any crops on it now. Because we have moved up the development schedule to go ahead and process this as development.
I'm sorry, sir, but that doesn't sound like good stewardship of property and land to me. It goes against everything that the rural living.
Sir, those don't apply to this land. Those rural living and rural conservation play staffs do not apply to this land. It is zone PR.
They do apply during the development review process. The growth policy plan does not really apply to certain elements, but the comprehensive plan place types do apply during the development plan review.
I had some questions. I'm kind of curious as to why there wasn't any requirement for a buffer, for example, between that development and the Mary Bend. Would that
Was never requested
maybe
prior
go to planning?
Usually, we require a screening when there's a request for a reduction of the peripheral setback. In this case, they were not requesting the peripheral setback reduction. And usually when there's a abutting-like uses, so in this case, it's single-family to single-family, again, we wouldn't necessarily require we could require, the Plan Commission could require a landscape screening regardless, but typically we wouldn't make that recommendation as from a staff perspective.
And did you, during the development phase at all, did you meet with the residents, the Mary Ben residents?
At zoning,
At
I
all?
met individuals from Mary Ben who we met in this lobby.
That was zoning, which was before advanced Knox, but during the development phase at all, you've not met with any? Okay.
No, because we all agreed that 2 units an acre was a win for them because we didn't get the 3 or 5 that we really wanted. So it was kind of a lose-lose.
3 to 5 would not be acceptable in this zone.
Well, next door, Mary Ben is zone 3 units an acre, and that was our basis of it, of the request. But we accepted the 2 units, and we did not come in front of you. We did not take it to court. We're accepting our 2 units an acre.
Based on the zoning ordinance, I don't think you've got any expectation of anything more than 2 units per acre.
Agreed.
Low density is actually
I think I'd let Mike talk about low or what.
Yeah, so you're kind of thinking about the old sector plan designation with low-density residential in the county was up to 5 dwelling units per acre prior. This area had been agricultural, or I think that was right before, so.
Just one more question. Is rural living, is that applicable to this property?
So like I said, it's the place type on the property as well as the surrounding area. The rural living place type has certain recommendations. It talks about a general intent for that district. It talks about housing mix and form types or form attributes. So single-family detached houses are primary use. It talks about that single-family houses should be on, or that varying lot sizes for single-family house, but doesn't define that. And then in the growth or the matrix, the zoning matrix, that tells you, matches up the existing zoning to the place types, like which zones would be most appropriate in different place types. Recommends planned residential up to 2 dwelling units per acre maximum. So that part of it, you can kind of ignore to some degree because the zoning's already on the property and it is no more than 2 dwelling units per acre. So we'd really be looking more at the place type recommendations for rural living, which are talking about single family houses. It also talks about open space and other rural characteristic type elements, but doesn't go into detail what those things are. The growth policy or the comprehensive plan also has policies and actions to implement policies, which is another thing that we look at. So I don't necessarily want to go through all those, but it's just ultimately the policies and actions will guide the future ordinance development. And some of those elements can be used today for recommendations on development plans to help bring a development into the character of the area or what the rural living place type in this instance is recommending. So I'll be happy to expand on that if needed, but.
I have one last question. All of the open space that's going to be left after you carve out 26 acres out of the 70, whatever, who's going to maintain that?
We'll fund the HOA to maintain it.
What is the maintenance of that area going to look like?
Just finally mowed.
So the HOA is going to pay someone to mow 50 some odd acres?
Yeah.
You say finally mowed, which could be once a week, twice a week, or, you know,
We anticipate some play fields or maybe some gardening areas, just whatever the HOA wants to do. Something they can enjoy.
Mike, is there any way to require that a certain level of maintenance be done?
I think the dirty lot ordinance would take control of that. Tammy, wouldn't you agree? I think we have an ordinance in place that would ensure maintenance.
One of
And
the ideas.
In residential zones, it wouldn't allow the grass to be more than 12 inches high. So at 12 inches high, there would be we would enforce the dirty lot ordinance on the HOA.
Okay, so if it has to be mowed and they haven't mowed it, you send a letter to the HOA, and if they don't do anything about it, you have to come in and mow it?
We mow it and then add it on to the taxes.
Send them a bill.
Yeah.
One of the ideas of having clustered housing and open space is to let some of the open space grow up in a natural way. People say, we want to live in the country, and to have something that doesn't look so manicured sometimes, maybe having places for the kids to get out in fields, maybe having even ideas of wildflowers growing, something like that. So keeping it finely mowed is not necessarily one of the aspects of rural living.
I understand all of that, and I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. But I haven't seen one single document from the developer that says that any of that's going to happen.
Well, we haven't seen a lot of a development plan, have we?
No.
Except a picture
And
up there.
The idea that the planning commission would approve this without them saying it, to me, just seems irresponsible. I'm sorry, I don't know any other word for it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's one thing to tell you what you've got to do on the 26 acres that you're going to develop it, but this whole development depends on the rest of the 70 whatever acres. You've got 50 acres that is not addressed. There's no information in the development plan that I've seen.
But sir, it'll remain private property until we re-subdivide it, bring a plan back in front of planning commission, re-subdivide it, and then redevelop it. So it will remain ours that we have to maintain.
But you're not re-subdividing the rest of the 50 acres.
We have 7 units left that we can put 7 large 5-acre, 4-acre tracts on it and sell those tracts. We can re-subdivide it, but like Mike said, we have to bring that back in front of planning commission to carve out 7 additional lots.
Mr. Chairman. If you decide not to, then what?
Because then it'll remain private property, or we can gift it to the HOA.
Mr. Chairman, I have something that's important, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't think Josh was here at the beginning of the meeting. Did you get sworn in, Josh?
No.
So I don't know what we do.
We just do it. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony that you've already given and the testimony that you will continue to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right.
I just asked earlier, who owns the rest of the property that you're not developing with the 26 acres?
Right now, until there's a development plan in front that we can re-subdivide it and deed an individual, a lot owner, we will remain owner of it or make it common area, whichever we decide to do.
So you're going to own the rest of the 26 acres too?
That's common practice for us and many developers. You remain in control of the remaining land, whether it butts to another farm, because there's 2 more farms to the north of this that we might be tying into as that family has already wanted to sell. So there's further plans in action. What we've done is submitted a development plan that meets all the criteria, has gone through planning commission, and now it's in front of you. And I don't know what else we can do. We've done the traffic study. We've done all the process. We're going to build a nice, affordable development in this area. I don't know what other box we can check.
One thing you could do to help me would be to tell me exactly what you plan to do with the remaining piece of property.
If the world is perfect right now, we would cut it up with 7 more lots, make them and sell those $100,000, if that's what the market says, to an individual like you, where you could have an unrestricted 4-acre tract and build your house where you want it to and connect your driveway to a county road and have county utilities, which is uncommon for a 4-acre tract out in this area. Most of them don't have a county road to tie into. Most of them don't have utilities into. So it is a very marketable product. People want to live in this area and on 4 acres, but not everyone can afford it. That's why in a perfect world, we would cut up 7 more mini farms, as we would call them, let someone have them non-restricted. They can have a shed, they can have a garden, they can do what they want to on their property. And that's what we intend in a perfect world to do right now.
So in a non-perfect world, it may sit there for years, and you say you still own it, but you're going to make the HOA pay for maintaining it.
If we still own it, we will maintain it. We will never pass a buck to anyone else if we own it. Now,
So-
if they desire that they want to use it for gardens or what they want to take it, then we'll have a conversation with our homeowners about what it would cost to do that, and we could do that. They're going to have amenities at the front of the development too. They're going to have a clubhouse and area for them to play in a playground.
Let me make sure I understand. You have 26 acres that you
I
own.
have 74 acres.
Well, I know, but other than the housing, you own that extra land.
Correct.
Your options are to keep the land.
Correct.
And maintain it.
Correct.
Another option would be to subdivide that land into what I'll call mini farms, for want of a better word, at which point they will be sold and the owner would then maintain it.
Correct.
If the HOA would like to have it, you could possibly give it to the HOA. Once that is done, the HOA would be responsible for maintaining it.
Correct.
I'm trying to think of another option, but I'm not sure what there is one.
Legacy Parks in Knox County has highlighted different areas of where a park might take place, and that has been identified.
Oh, that would be lovely in that area.
Again, but that is future, and I can't control all that.
Oh, I know that. I'm just trying to make sure that it's very clear that there are options, and those options have been explained, and I thank you for that.
Yes.
May I ask one more question?
Yes.
Could the other option possibly be that at a later date that goes back before planning to redevelop the balance of the property just like this?
Who knows?
Something to think
That's not an
about.
option.
The growth map the growth policy plan would have to be updated. The last one took 20 years. So, I mean, it could be a possibility in 20 years. I guess if the growth policy plan, when it was updated, recognized this as planned growth area. But that's seeing way far into the future that I don't think we could see that far ahead.
You can actually update the growth policy plan more often than that. The reason that we haven't in 20 years, for anybody who was involved in the process this time knows why it hadn't been done in 20 years. And it won't be done again probably until everybody who was involved in it this time is either dead or retired or someplace else.
I'd like to say something as a citizen of that area. First of all, I love Corrigan area. It is basically still rural. The only reason it is still rural is that there are no sewers. And so when people say, well, how can we maintain our rural character? Don't have sewers. Because people that own their land, now we have some people who have large farms that have put it into a land conservancy, and I really appreciate them doing that. But other than that, there are people like the Simmons who had to sell their property to have money to live on. When you're a farmer, your IRA isn't that big normally. You have your land, and the land was sold. That's how Mary Ben came into being, because Mrs. Simmons needed the money. And that's how they made it. Then when Dr. and Mrs. Simmons died and it was left to all the different children, which if you have more than one child, make sure you do something different than just say you all divide it. It had to be divided. And yes, it would have been nice to leave it just rolling green, but it wasn't. And if you've lived in East Tennessee, what happens to a field after 2 years? How many cedar trees do you have growing? And how many pine trees do you have growing? And it really grows up. And that's lovely if you can leave it like that. I like wildlife. I have deer that walk through and eat every apple my apple trees ever grow. They eat all of the blackberries, and that's fine. They're beautiful. And we have fox and we have coyotes and we have, my mother-in-law once said, I believe you all have zebras. And I said, nope, we don't have those. But it is an area where people who grew up in Corrigan want to bring their families to live. If you've tried to find a house to rent or a land to buy in northeast Knox County, and I think Sherry can speak to Halls the same way. There is no land, and people are dying to have land. It would be nice if it didn't have to be a development, but it's going to have to be a development because people can't afford. It would be nice if everybody could have 4 to 5 acres and build a big farmhouse, but they can't. You have to, I mean, what is starter home? $300,000, $400,000 now? That's unbelievable. As far as the schools, Coreyton School, Gibbs Middle and Gibbs High can handle the influx. Traffic will be god-awful. It already is in many places. But until we can get infrastructure, Jim, under control, then it's going to be like that. And I don't know the answer to that. It would not be my choice, but I think they're doing the best they can with what they have. And I don't see that there has been any rule or any step taken. Community development conversation might have been good, but it would not have solved anything. I trust you when you say there's going to be sidewalks. I like the fact that there are 2 entrances. That will help a lot for safety reasons. We do have a fire department in Coreyton, so that's a good thing. And, you know, in a perfect world, it would be a different situation. But the idea that there are different size lots allowing for different kinds of houses, it's not going to be cookie cutter. It will change things, but to me, the worst thing is that KUB or whatever it is, TVA power thing over there that hums in an ungodly way 24/7. So I don't know what to tell you except that I will support.
I just want to say this. I just want to say this, and I won't say anymore. My concern's not so much with what you're showing to be developed. I don't like it. I've never liked postage stamp lots, but they are what they are. My concern is the total lack of commitment or plan as for what's going to happen with the balance of the property. You've told me you may sell it off in large tracts, but I don't think you're going to find too many people willing to spend $1 million for those for each one of those lots to buy them, let alone build a house. But you might. Then again, you might not. And assuming you don't, I haven't heard any or seen any plan for what's going to happen with that property in the interim. Ms. Longmire mentioned all sorts of things, wildflower beds and, you know, natural areas growing up, this, that. That's all fine, but it doesn't show up on a plan anywhere. There's no commitment to any of that in anything that went before the Planning Commission. And for them to approve this development with that hanging out there with no information whatsoever about it, because you're not just developing 26 acres. You're developing 74 acres, but you're only talking about the 26. You're not saying anything at all about the balance of the property. And this should never have been approved just looking at the 26 acres that you're planning to build houses on. It should have included a plan for the entire piece of property. And for that reason, I will vote no on it.
Well, Chairman, the Mary Ben had the same issue. This farm was right next, and it was labeled future development, just like we're doing future development. So it's a let's stop the buck there at Mary Ben. They got to do it.
With all due respect, sir,
future development.
I can't fix what Mary Ben did. The issue that's before us is what you plan to do. And I believe that's all the time we have for discussion on, or for presentation on this.
I'd like to just add, what size homes and price range are you referring to?
We'd love to be under 350 if we can. That's hard right now, but you're looking from 1,800 square feet to 4,200 square feet. We'd love to be under 350. That's tough to do.
I do have one clarification. Based on Mr. Lloyd's question, I'm going to ask Steve and possibly Mike to confirm. So this 72-acre lot, you've got the acreage that you're building this development on. Based on what's what we're doing right now, and based on the 2 dwelling units per acre, the rest of the property cannot be developed to that level ever until, if there ever plans change, other than the 7 units that he has left. That's correct.
Today, that's all he can do. If the growth policy plan were to ever be updated and the planned growth area took over this area, he could come back and ask for more density. Mike, would you agree with that? I mean,
Yes, it would take amendments to the plan to get more density at this point.
But at this point in time, it could not happen, correct?
and the growth, the planned growth area is so far away, I wouldn't, hopefully I'm not a part of the next update, but if I were, I wouldn't envision the planned growth area going out this far.
It would take an act of God. I will stand in front of you. This thing will never be more developed than the additional 7 lots that we may get. That would take an act of God.
And those 7 lots require a development plan, so they require approval by planning commission.
I just want to chime in that I think I love postage size lots. That's what I live on personally. But, I feel like the intent of this rural living area is for there to be, 2 houses per acre spread across the land. Now, we might not be able to require that, and I certainly understand how the math works out, but I'm also challenged by the fact that there isn't a plan for all the extra land. So if we're going to give up these houses having half-acre lots, which again, I personally wouldn't want, I'd rather live in the development that you're building, then I feel like there's got to be a plan for what happens to the other, more than half of the
I can stand in front of you and commit under oath that our commitment is to do 7 more lots. Flag lots, what shape they are, I don't know how big they are, where a house sits. We want to stay away from the TVA line. We want to make sure we tie into the next line or the next farm. It would be 7 more lots. I don't know if it'll be 2 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres. We might just sell 27 acres, but that's all it will be, and that's under oath. That's all we plan for.
But why could that have not been planned already? I mean, you've got the hard part done, the streets, the cul-de-sacs and all that, but why not draw the lines?
Making larger lot, because the lot line, the way the shape, if you go buy a lot, you're gonna look at where you wanna place your house, where your driveway wants to go. That's all up to a homeowner. We need to go walk it and study and get the lay of the land, how much grading we wanna do. What we do on what you're calling postage size, we do that every day. That's in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
When we get to get outside and do something more desirable, more expensive, and build someone buying 150,000 lot, we need to put more thought into it and shape it and make sure it's correctly done. We haven't done that yet because we're 4 years out from this development having the first homeowner, or 3 years out from the first homeowner moving in. So we're getting caught up on something that isn't worth getting caught up on. There'll be 7 more lots in there, shape, don't know, but that's what we are committed to do.
And by the way, I want to tell you that those TVA lines he's talking about are the giant silver transmission lines.
Oh, it ruins that side of the farm. It ruins it.
So my next question would be, probably going back to planning, if we grant this application, what would be the next step for Mr. Sanderson?
Well, if the planning commission approval is upheld, their next step for developing the property is going through the permitting process and platting and all that kind of stuff, building houses. Beyond that, the additional, any additional lots or some other use of that rear property would have to come back to the planning commission because of the planned residential zone. You can't get any permits without a development plan approval. And obviously, if it's kind of deeded to the HOA and they just kind of leave it as open space and don't do anything with it, then so be it. But they don't really need a development plan for that. But any other permitted uses would have to come back to the planning commission for approval first.
So if we denied the planning commission's recommendations, then it would go back to planning commission, correct?
If you approve the appeal and overturn the planning commission approval, then yes, their next step is to go back to the planning commission with a new plan.
Well, there is I think there is a second option. They can just go to court and try to get what's already on paper approved through the court. But yeah, you're right. The right thing to do would be to go back to planning commission with a reasonable plan that, if nothing else, puts on paper what you are committed to doing with the.
Sir, that's a big ask. The next item on your agenda is, you'll see a future development that we can't plan that far in the future. We cannot plan that. You're asking something that's not available to us to do right now. We can't lay that out right now. You know how much time that's going to take?
I used to do it for a living. I know what it takes, okay? So, yeah, it's money and it's time, but you're talking about people's community here. And, well, whatever. I have nothing more to say about that. I think it's time to call for a motion.
Mine, I'll make the motion to approve the appeal, to disapprove the appeal, to not grant the appeal to Knox County Planning Commission's approval of Development Plan 12C 24DP. And that means if you vote yes, it's in favor of the development. No means you're not in favor of the development. It has to go back to court or to the planning commission.
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of.
Can we have the motion reread, just to make sure we understand? Sorry.
I'll give it a try. To deny the appeal of Knox County Planning Commission's approval of the Development Plan 12C 24DP. And it's one of those things, if you vote yes, you're denying, and no, you're approving, which sounds very backward.
Would it be easier for the motion to say to uphold the decision of planning commission?
That would be lovely. Yes, I would like to change that to uphold the decision. And then yes means yes. Yeah. If you say yes, you're upholding what the Knoxville planning did. Does that make sense now? Good. Good job, Chief.
Yes. If everybody understands what they're voting on and how they're going to vote.
Yes would be to uphold what has already been established by the planning commission. No would be to say that we don't agree with what the planning commission has stipulated, and we want to allow them to go ahead and build.
No. Time out. Excuse me. If you vote yes, you're saying whatever the planning commission approved, we agree with, and the builder may go ahead and continue with his development. If you vote no, you disagree with what the planning commission has said, and you're requesting that the developer go back to the planning commission with a revised development plan. Does that make sense? Yeah. Everybody understand that now? Okay. Motion's been made and seconded and clarified. If you would call the roll, please.
Curtis Brown.
No.
Jonathan Repass.
No.
Doug Lloyd.
No.
Ashley Williams.
No.
Cecil Anderson.
No.
John Elliott.
Yes.
Sherry Garrett.
No.
Rebecca Longmire.
Yes.
Paul Huff.
No. I believe I counted 7-2 in favor of the applicant, requesting that this development plan be sent back to planning commission, or revised and sent back to planning commission. So your application has been approved. That was painful.
I would like to say thank you to both parties for working so hard to make sure we understand
please.
a difficult situation.
Item 5M is a request of David and Maureen Dodd, to appeal Knox County Planning Commission's approval of Development Plan Number 12-C-24-DP, properties located at 3324 Swafford Road, CLT map 103, parcel 073, zone PR in the 6th Commission District.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Is there any opposition to this applicant?
I'm David Nanstead. I live at 2838 Swafford Road, and I don't think I've been sworn in either.
You raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm testimony you have to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Before we go on, is there anybody else that's going to speak today that hasn't been sworn in? Okay, very good. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm representing residents living on Swafford Road. And we filed the appeal, me and my wife representing folks living off Swafford Road, and I got copies of it I'd like to hand out. I don't think I have enough for everybody, but maybe you could share. Want to start by saying, first off, thanks to all of you for doing what you do. This is my first time being involved with something like this, and it's both exciting and kind of nervous as well, but pretty cool. So I want to start by asking if anyone had a chance to actually drive Swafford Road. And if you haven't, I would highly recommend you do that. So I'm essentially just going to read my appeal because it kind of lays it all out. So we respectfully submit this appeal challenging the Knox County Planning Commission's approval of the proposed development plan 12C24DP, 12SB24C, which I'll call the development for the rest of my appeal, which is located at 3324 Swafford Road. This appeal was filed in accordance with the Knox County zoning ordinance, section 65008A. And as I mentioned, I really would want to encourage folks to drive Swafford Road if you hadn't already to understand the magnitude of our concerns. So we're challenging the Commission's approval of the development based on the following. So our key grounds for the approval. Incompatibility with the Knox County Growth Policy Plan. So the development is not in compliance with the January 12, 2000 Knox County Growth Policy Plan. Under Section 1, Recommended Growth Plan, Policies Part 3.5C on page 6, extensions of low-density residential development into the rural area shall be limited to the following conditions. Part C, connecting collector and arterial roads from the proposed development to the urban growth boundary or planned growth area, which meet the standards of the Knox County Engineering and Public Works Department or its successor. So the development is within an area designated as rural area according to the Growth Policy Plan map. The first phase of the development will be served only by Swafford Road. Swafford Road is classified as a local street according to the Knox County Major Road Plan 2018. And I think I attached to my letter, I handed around an image of the plan in the Knox County Major Road Plan. Part 3, and I quote, connecting collector and arterial roads from the proposed development to the urban growth boundary. That's from the part I quoted from the growth policy plan. That means that the new development should be linked to existing arterial roads through collector roads, allowing traffic from the new development to access the wider road network. So the development's first phase is connected to a local street, Swafford Road only, and is not served by a collector road linked to an arterial road, and is therefore not in compliance with the Knox County Growth Policy Plan. So that is further supported by the 2024 Knox County Growth Policy Plan Amendment, Section 1, Policies Part 4.3, Part C, which mandates that developments in areas designated as rural living must be on a collector road with a minimum width of 18 feet. The intent of this restriction is to restrict certain land uses to access to access using a collector or arterial roadway and prevent some land uses off a local street. So from page 2, second paragraph of the county major road plan, and I quote, "It should be noted that the major road plan is also referenced and utilized in certain aspects of the zoning ordinance of both the city of Knoxville and Knox County in order to restrict certain land uses to have access only from either a collector or arterial roadway, i.e. preventing some land uses off a local street." So, in summary, this development is served by a local street. It needs to be served by a collector or arterial roadway per the requirements of the growth policy plan. Part D. In response to the amendment, the subdivision report conceptual development plan case file includes under the comments section an item 4.A that says, since the property was zoned PR up to 3 units per acre before the growth policy plan was amended in 2024, the requirement that the property be located on a collector road is not applicable. So we're challenging that statement based on Part 1A above that I just described to you that quotes the 2000 Knox County Growth Policy Plan that would still apply in the absence of this amendment. The area remains designated as rural, and infrastructure requirements applicable to such developments should prevail, and the development should be required to be served from a collector road with adequate capacity. And this inconsistency undermines the principles of equitable and sustainable development outlined in the Knox County Growth Policy Plan. So now I'm moving on to Part E. Additionally, approval of the development goes against goals outlined in the Knox County Growth Policy Plan, Section 1, Recommended Growth Plan, including Part I, encourage a pattern of compact and continuous development to be guided into urban areas and planned growth areas. The Knox County Growth Policy Plan map shows the development along Swafford Road is within an area designated as rural, not urban growth, and the development is neither compact nor continuous with existing development. So, the second part of our appeal addresses traffic study flaws and safety concerns. So there was a traffic plan that was developed to support this development. So we reviewed it and we've got some comments on it. The traffic study supporting this development, as outlined in its executive summary, focused solely on intersection analysis and neglected the actual conditions of Swafford Road itself. On page 6 of the study, it stated that the road, Swafford Road, has 10-foot travel lanes. However, local observations and measurements provide photographic evidence, which I've attached to my letter that I passed around, as well as the electronic version. I hope all of you were forwarded. There are sections of the road which are more narrow than 10 feet, and that presents safety hazards. So there's exhibits 1 through 3 on my letter that, unfortunately, there you go. Part B, the traffic study includes an assumption that 30% of development traffic will turn left onto Swafford Road. That's from page 13, figure 6 of their study. It states that these patterns were based on the existing traffic patterns derived from the traffic counts and knowledge of the area. As a resident of Swafford Road, I have probably better knowledge of the area. I'm challenging that percentage since the access to the nearest grocery store, gas station, pharmacy, and schools will require a left turn onto Swafford Road. This potential discrepancy should underscore the need for revised and accurate traffic analysis. Part C, the Swafford Road Bridge over Beaver Creek is extremely narrow with a curb-to-curb width of 18 feet and an approach roadway width of 14 feet. And I'll emphasize that because as we're approaching that bridge, if someone's coming from the other way, you have to stop and let them come through. So this bridge is served by an extremely narrow approach, as I said, 14 feet, as detailed on the TDOT National Bridge Inventory, which I attached to my letter, Tennessee Inventory and Appraisal Report. That's attachment A. So the report indicates the bridge was built in 1929 and has recommended that the bridge be widened. However, the traffic impact study only recommended that the county restripe the double yellow center lane and clean out the travel edge. And that does not address the known inadequacies of the bridge. So moving on to the next part, it should have been numbered 3, and it says 1 up there, but unprecedented use of local street for large-scale development. So it's unusual and inappropriate for a development of this magnitude to include a local street for access. The Planning Commission's decision sets a concerning precedent, ignoring the intent of the growth policy plan to manage growth responsibly. Developments of this scale typically require access to a collector or arterial roads to mitigate impacts on existing communities, as I presented in the first part of my appeal. We propose that the development be required to be served from a collector or arterial road in compliance with the growth policy plan, such as Sam Lee, and not be permitted to be served from Swafford Road. Sam Lee Road is a more appropriate access point, and as the county has already committed resources to its improvement. Requiring the development to build access via Sam Lee Road would align with taxpayer interests and ensure a safer infrastructure for all. So in conclusion, given these concerns, we urge the Board of Zoning Appeals to require the development plan be restricted to not using Swafford Road and revised to comply with the growth policy plan requirements that development in rural areas be served from a collector road. My appeal is not intended to impede growth, but to ensure that it's managed responsibly and in accordance with the principles of safety, equity, and sustainability. We also urge, as I mentioned already a few times, that you drive down Swafford Road to truly understand the conditions there and limitations of what that road can support. So thank you for hearing our concerns. So I'll give the rest of my time to Kevin.
Before
Sure.
you leave, you say the bridge report indicates the bridge was built in 1929?
Mm-hmm.
I must be missing something because the copy I have in my booklet said that the year the bridge was built was 1967.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm sorry. I probably was looking at the wrong page of that report, so my apologies. That's an error on my
I
part.
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I think I got the recommendation, the condition, the other stuff should be
Yeah, the rest
on
of the
that.
stuff looks like
Okay.
it's correct. 14-foot
Sorry about
wide
that.
approach, yes.
So, yeah, I'll give the rest of my time to Kevin.
How much time, Kevin?
3 more minutes. 1:35.
Thank you. Kevin Murphy, 4508 Murphy Road. There's 2 things I want to call your attention to. In the traffic study that was submitted with this development plan, it has a projection for what the traffic will do exiting this development. So when it gets to Swafford Road, and they project that 30% will turn left and continue down Swafford Road towards Sam Lee in the heart of Hardin Valley, and 70% would then take Swafford Road for a couple hundred feet up to is at Gwen Road, and then which is a collector arterial. In the traffic report, it says they based that percentage on local knowledge. So we don't know if that is. They said their knowledge, but they didn't have any basis. There's no traffic count or anything. So I want to call attention that that's kind of a. It's there, but it's not a. I can't find any justification for it. The other thing I want to call your attention to is that that is 2 miles from that proposed where it would have access to Swafford Road. It's 2 miles if you take a left down Swafford Road to Sam Lee Road. That's 2 miles on in about 5.5 minutes of drive time. I looked at I went all around the county on the aerial, and I looked and I tried to find developments where they're going to send a large proportion of their traffic down a local road for that length, and I can't find it. Just about every development is on a collector or arterial. There are a few that are on a local road, and all that traffic goes out that local road for a short distance to then hit the collector or arterial. So this is the thing that makes this one so unique is that long 2 mile stretch on Swafford Road, a local road, which is narrow, has a bridge, has narrow approaches. And finally, the traffic report didn't impact, it assessed the turning, it says it's turning or safety at intersections, so at control points. But it, and it talked about, well, Swafford Road's got a few places, and it talked a little about the bridge, but it didn't talk about what the impact is of putting several hundred more cars a day on a twisty, turny, narrow local road for 2 miles. That's not in the traffic report.
I have a question. Is the bridge that's referenced here, is it on the 2-mile stretch of Swafford Road?
It is. If you went out the development and then turned left, you would take Swafford Road down, and then the bridge is over Beaver Creek on the way to the intersection with Sam Lee Road.
I have a question for Steve or Jim, either one. Is a 14-foot wide road considered a 2-lane road?
I'm going to defer that to Jim. He's the traffic. I'm glad he's here today.
Not really, Chairman. The MUTCD, which defines when we can put striping on a roadway, says the minimum width you have to put a centerline stripe on a road, which in my opinion would classify as two-way street, was 16 feet wide. The county's policy is we like to have 18 feet wide to allow for, because the centerline stripe itself is 1 foot. It's 4 inches a gap and another 4 inches. So now we have a lot of roads in the county that are very narrow and they don't serve as, you kind of got to slow down or get over. But in our opinion, a 14-foot wide road doesn't meet the definition of really a two-way street that would be able to have a centerline on it. No, sir.
Well, I guess I'll have to put you on the spot again then. Did the traffic study that's referenced here take into account the 1-lane restriction at the approaches to that bridge?
It did, and this particular development, I think how many lots were in this one, Steve? 70? So the traffic study was only contemplating the addition of those trips of those 70 lots. So based on our analysis with that only a small limited number of lots and the distribution, we didn't feel like, and we concurred with the traffic study, that the road, although it is narrow now, wouldn't necessarily require improvements as part of this particular phase. Now, if the developer wants to do additional phases and additional traffic gets on it, yes, we would probably be looking for improvements, but based on the numbers as presented as part of this phase of the development, we did not feel like improvements to that were warranted at this point.
So let me understand, you said that the traffic study is based on just the traffic generated by this development? It did not include the existing traffic?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It included what we consider background traffic, the traffic that's already there, but it only included the lots that were of the 70 here. This, I believe, Smithfield owns a larger piece of property that they may develop in the future, but our traffic study only quantified these lots that are part of this development plan.
Thank you. Any other questions before we hear from the developer? You have the floor.
Josh Sanderson, 4909 Ball Road, Smithville Homes. I'll be brief. This is phase one of a larger development. It's a 250-acre tract. We have a lot more engineering, a lot more design to do, but this is how we get started. We have the traffic study that, according to Knox County Planning and Knox County Engineering, that the necessary improvements are laid out on this concept. As we move forward and do additional phases, additional traffic studies will have to be done. But again, we don't know what the future looks like. We don't know how many more developments will happen between now and by the time we get to the end of this thing. We don't know a lot, and I can't testify to anything we don't know. So what you have in front of you is 70 lots on a 250-acre tract, and the remaining balance might be developed or it might not be. I'm here for any questions or comments.
I got a quick question. Why not have it go out to connect to Sam Lee currently?
Sam Lee needs a lot of improvements, and there's a lot of other developments on Sam Lee. We think that those developments are probably going to trigger other traffic improvements to Sam Lee, and we have to build $1 million bridge, and it just the economics don't make sense. The next phase will most likely be the bridge and get all the way down to Beaver Creek and cross it into Sam Lee. But that design and that engineering, that traffic count, the future, what's between now and then, we don't know.
So to connect to Sam Lee, you'd have to build a bridge.
Yeah, this
Currently?
is a peninsula. This is a peninsula. It goes over Beaver Creek. So when we bought the property, we met with Knox County. We have every intention of building a bridge from Sam Lee onto this property and make that the primary entrance and exit. Swafford will become a secondary use.
But to start with the bridge and access to property that way was cost prohibitive at this point.
Oh, absolutely. And Sam Lee, yeah.
Gotcha.
I guess I'll ask you, assuming you develop the rest of the, 250 acres, similar density to what you're planning on now, do you anticipate it will increase the traffic on Swafford and across this narrow bridge?
I don't get involved in the engineering or the science of it. I can't testify on that. I would get a traffic study and they would tell me.
It would, yes, generate more traffic on Swafford roads, which at that point would require infrastructure improvements. If they make the connection to Sam Lee and that becomes the primary entrance, maybe the traffic study shows the most percentage of traffic would use Sam Lee. Maybe there's not improvements required, but if this is their only access point, it would generate it. That Knox County would ask for future infrastructure improvements.
And I would also like to just add to this that there's a condition of the concept plan and development plan that no more than 150 lots be allowed without a second access point created. Part of this was that we have certain policies regarding access points and number of lots and entrance road design and the type of entrance road that they're put in now, which is a typical 26-foot wide road. We typically start looking for an enhanced entrance type at that point, and they chose to continue with the design that they had, which indicates that they do intend to create a second access point sometime in the near future.
I'm assuming that the second access point had no influence on the traffic study that was done currently.
It did not. It only looked at the access point that's identified on this plan.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Jim. I know you're dying to tell me.
Oh, well, I just wanted to, been looking at some things back here. The Knox TPO has some traffic data on Swafford Road. They show the traffic count to be out there about 690 cars per day. Running some numbers on what the applicant's traffic study, or pardon me, Josh's traffic study had, you're going to add approximately a little over 200 trips going back on that segment of roadway. So they would be less than 1,000 ADT on that particular segment of roadway. Looking at the road on Street View, I mean, it's got a center line on it. So typically we're putting center lines on roads that are in the neighborhood of 17 to 18 feet wide. So based on those existing conditions, I think that goes back to our comments about the traffic study. At this limited number of lots, we feel like that the existing infrastructure out there is appropriate. However, as Josh and Smithfield develop more homes, then yes, we will be asking for more improvements. But at this point, with this limited number of lots, Engineering Public Works feels confident that that roadway would be accommodating of those trips. So just a little more context for you.
Is there any mechanism to put in traffic counters to correlate actual trips generated by developments to what we think there's going to be?
There are, one of the things that traffic engineers do is they'll put, those tubes you see down on the roadway, and they'll get directional volumes. That's how they assign this, 30% this way, 70% this way. I don't have that study in front of me, but I would anticipate that that's Cannon & Cannon did the study. They're a very reputable engineering firm. I would assume that they did that and established that percentage by looking at distribution of trips as they exist today.
I guess my question was about in the future, once this is developed, we've heard predictions that 30% are going to go this way and 70% are going to go that way. Is there any mechanism to put in traffic counters after it's developed and built out to validate those assumptions?
There are, with Josh having to come back and do additional developments, we will require turning movement counts at their entrance, so then we can look at that and validate those assumptions. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any more comment on this? Oh, boy. I'm sorry, is there any time left on the? No. I'm sorry, but
One more time.
wait, yeah, we've exhausted the time. Mr. Elliott?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, sir. You did an amazing job, and I think we're all in agreement that an arterial road needs to be come into play as soon as possible. But it's up to me to make a motion, so I'm going to make a motion today to deny the appeal of the Knox Planning Commission's approval of Development Plan 12-C-24-DP. The reason I'm making that motion is because I feel like we can only do it based on what we have in front of us today. And based on what we have in front of us today, the street folks feel like it works, and the planning commission feels that it works. And I'm going to support that based on the information that we have in front of us today.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I have one comment. I agree with everything Mr. Elliott said about what engineering thinks and what the planning commission thinks, but I can't get past the information that was presented that says that these developments need to be attached to something other than a local road. And Swofford can't be considered anything other than a local road at 18 feet wide and a 14-foot approach to a bridge. So unless somebody can explain to me why that's not correct.
I don't know if that's 100% correct. When the growth policy plan was amended, it replaced section 1 in its entirety, which was what was referenced in the new version. It says, so it must be on a collector road with minimum width of 18 feet or with an approved memorandum of understanding in place to improve the road to 18 feet or greater through the rural area to the adjacent planned growth or urban growth area as defined by the major growth plan. And so Swofford Road is a local road, and then Gwynn Road is a collector. And that's where there's a condition to widen Swofford to the north to Gwynn Road. And let's see here. I think I don't know what the width of Gwynn Road is offhand, but let's see here. Back to Solway Road is the planned growth area. So the requirement to widen Swofford Road back to Gwynn Road, which is a classified road, is what we feel meets the intent of the growth policy plan and the recommendation.
And I would also add that this development was approved prior to the growth policy plan being adopted. And there's language in the growth policy plan, and maybe Mike knows about it, that they retained their rights under the old growth policy plan, which would have allowed a development off of a local street.
There seems to be some confusion about whether or not this development can be served by a local street, either in past requirements or in current requirements. So I'm not hearing a definitive answer on that.
In the past, it could, right, Mike? Is that?
That's what I tried to quote under Part 1A, is from the 2000 Knox County Growth Policy Plan.
So in the 2000 growth policy plan, it was geared toward extensions of low-density residential. And we looked at mainly like zoning at the time, if zoning could be approved for the property. And it allowed, under certain conditions, to get up to 3 dwellings per acre, which this property did obtain. And under the new growth policy plan, it stipulates that existing densities are retained. You know, we don't, just because it's in the rural area now, doesn't mean that it goes down to 2 dwelling units per acre. They still have the option for 3 dwelling units per acre.
Mike, I'm sorry, but the question's not about dwelling units per acre. The question is whether or not this development has to be served by a local street or it has to be served by something like a collector.
I don't see anything that says it can't be, because it says, so this is about, again, extensions of low-density residential into the rural area. And if a property was rezoned to 3 dwelling units per acre at the time, they have that right to develop at 3 dwellings per acre. It talks about you had to provide a traffic impact letter at the time of rezoning to indicate that the road system could handle the density requested. And presumably that was done and approved. Going back on that now, I don't know how you do that.
Are you looking at the January 12th, 2000 Knox County Growth Policy Plan?
I am.
On Part 3.5C on page 6. Extensions of low-density residential development in the rural area shall be limited to the following conditions. Part C, connecting collector and arterial roads from the proposed development to the urban growth boundary.
In D, it says, a traffic impact analysis demonstrating to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission that the effect of the proposed and similar developments in the traffic analysis zone will not unreasonably impair traffic flow along the arterial roads through the planned growth area. The intent of this section is to allow extensions of low-density residential development into rural areas where urban services become available. And then this goes on to say that these areas should be reclassified as planned growth when the growth policy plan is amended. And the way that that's been interpreted in the past was that that was on the rezoning side of things. If the rezoning was approved, then they were able to move forward with development. So.
But Mike, what you just read talked about the arterials, not impacting the arterial streets. This is not an arterial. Swofford's not an arterial. It's a local street. I agree that the traffic generated by this development, once it reaches an arterial, probably won't have an impact on the arterial, but that's not the issue.
But it says connecting collector and arterial roads from the proposed development to the urban growth and boundary and planned growth area, and then talks about a traffic impact analysis letter being provided. During the rezoning phase, that was all done.
Yeah, the operative term there are connecting collector and arterial roads. So connecting, the property must be served by a collector or arterial road.
I guess I'm not seeing how that is, like the old growth policy plan is really.
Jim, what's the difference between a collecting road and a local road?
it's an interpretation. Typically, it relates to the functional capacity of it, the volumes. I think in this case, Swofford, the major road plan was last updated in 2018. But I would say that, Swofford does connect, it probably connects to collectors. So, I think, it could be argued that that this road could be classified a collector. It's not, but it does have connecting points to other collectors in our community. So it's more of an art than a science a little bit with that. We look at traffic volumes, we look at connectivity, alternate routes, things like that. But unfortunately, I don't have a real clean answer for that, Ms. Longmire.
It's classified as a local street, sir.
I think that the rub is that, if this property had absolutely no access to a classified road whatsoever, if you interpret it the way that the applicant is interpreting it, you could not develop the property, which is not the intent of what the growth policy plan says. Because it does say that your existing zoning continues, it doesn't take away property rights. So I just don't see how he could interpret it in such a way that you can't access the local road if you can meet the 18-foot standard.
And I think I agree with Mike. I think what we're talking about here is something that should have taken place at the rezoning. If the planning commission would have interpreted it the way the applicant is interpreting it, they wouldn't have rezoned it. So that the only legal access they have is to Swofford right now. They're on a peninsula. Without they build a bridge, they don't have connection to A. So I'm not for sure how the planning commission could have rezoned it without they believe that it could be on a local street.
How far is it on Swofford Road to the nearest collector?
It's a few hundred feet. Gwynn Road is a collector.
So how far?
It's a few hundred feet.
A few
200
hundred feet? So the other option, just to be completely honest, is they could upgrade a few hundred feet of Swofford Road.
Which they've agreed to do. That's something we identified in as a condition of the approval, that they have to make Swofford Road 18 feet to that intersection. Correct, Mac? Wasn't the condition of the approval? 20? 20? It's 20 feet, I'm sorry.
So that is a condition of the approval?
Yes.
I did not know that, sorry. That being the case, I'd have to say that if the part of Swofford Road between, for those few hundred feet is upgraded to a condition, to a level of service, not a level of service, but a rating for
We have a motion and a
functional
second.
class, excuse me, I'll get it out in a minute.
We have a
functional
motion.
class.
We have a motion and a second.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
The problem with that, no one's gonna go down that way to get to amenities. Everything they need to be served by is the other way.
Sir, you're talking about a technicality, and they have met that technicality. So we have a motion and a second to disapprove? Yes. All those in favor of disapproving this application, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Sorry, it's disapproved. 30 minutes to go through the next two. One. Oh, that's right. Oh, this is the toughest one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
5N is a request of Nancy Holbert, POA Maggie Holbert, to appeal the judgment approving revisions to the Midway Business Park Design Guidelines. The property is located at 0 Midway Park Lane, CLT map 074, parcels 097, 09703, 09704, 09707 through 09717, and 09725, property zone EC and a K in the 8th Commission District.
Mr. Chairman, we've got a 2:45 hard stop here, so I'm hoping we can get this case done. You think we can get done in 45 minutes here?
hopefully 30.
I don't,
I'll be perfectly honest. I've looked at this one. I've tried my best to figure out exactly what the issues are, but I don't. So you're more familiar with it than I am. Do you think we can do it in 45 minutes?
I think we can. I just, I don't want to
Okay.
get us in any trouble with any county commissioners coming in here.
Okay. As concisely as possible, please state your name and address and reason for your application.
Jason Ferguson, representative for Maggie and Nancy Holbert at 635 Manila Drive in Strawberry Plains, Tennessee 37871.
Go ahead.
The residents of that entire area fought for years and rightfully lost the battle to Midway Business Park. With that being said, the conversations that I've had with the residents in that area, they are not against the job growth and, more importantly, Greenhack actually coming into this area. And if I can be corrected if I'm wrong, please, that zone is EC? Correct. It has a height limit of 45 feet. And in the last, I believe in November, they asked for the height requirement to be obliterated. So 45 feet is now no restriction. Has been stated in here earlier today. I'm not aware of Mike's last name, so I apologize. I would address him by his last name. That a two-story house compared to a one-story house, it overshadows the adjoining properties. So if you look on a map and you see Manila Drive, it's just to the northeast of the 345 acres. Right. Anywhere in the pink area, there's no restrictions now. So what I was tasked to do today was just simply ask for you all to keep the height requirement of 45 feet, to not be in excess of 45 feet on any building that's set to be built anywhere inside the pink. As you can see, I'm here for Shackelford Estates, which is Manila Drive right there. So I'm maybe speaking a little bit for the other properties around. So I'm not trying to speak for them without speaking to them directly. So the height requirement, the part of the appeal that we filed, which is also about the setbacks, 345 acres that they have to use with a 50 feet setback. And we were asking for much more space when it comes to any type of buffer zone. That's why we asked for 250. Also, that area, as we all can understand, it's about to go through some massive changes. And the setback requirement might be a little bit of a ask at the 250 feet, but again, Greenhack has 345 acres to do everything that I hope that they can accomplish in their manufacturing process. The setback, again, would help relieve or add a little bit more of a opportunity for the surrounding neighbors to maybe not feel the impact quite so much, which has actually already been felt. They have actually started sending out their engineers to test the ground, obviously, to start building the buildings, which we've heard complaints that it has scared many of the equine in the area, mine included, at 635. That's my personal property that I have at 635, are the horses. So again, those were the two things that I was wanting to try to go over with you all today, and would entertain any comments or questions.
So if I understand you correctly, you're asking for us to impose additional restriction or requirements on the developer to reduce the building height down to 45 feet?
It's not a restriction. It's something that was in November. The 45-foot restriction was taken away.
So right now it's not restricted.
Right, correct. They could build a 3,000-foot skyscraper if they wanted to.
I don't know that that's correct. On the planning commission, and this is for Mike Reynolds, it says building height, remove maximum building height requirements and replace with building height shall be in accordance with height limitations for the applicable zone. What is the height for the applicable zone?
So we have it on the screen here. You can read the screen, but go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so so in the guidelines, it says that there's two different sections that got amended, or at least there's references, but it says what you just said, that the maximum building height is per the applicable zone. Then in that first part, then it references a section F in the guidelines that says building height shall be in accordance with the height limitations of the applicable zone. ET zone or EC zone currently limits to 45 max height. Planning has agreed to review future zoning revisions to provide an appropriate use matrix for building height, example, office, hotel uses to 75 feet, manufacturing to 45 feet, et cetera, which is an example of something that could happen, but would require a zoning amendment. So as of right now, the EC zone has a maximum for, doesn't matter what kind of building you're building, maximum height is 45 feet. The only way to go above that is to get a variance from this board, or for the zoning ordinance to be amended, which starts with planning with a recommendation, and then goes to county commission for adoption. So there couldn't be any height above 45 feet until there was an ordinance amendment or variance is approved.
Excuse me, being a devil's advocate, it says 45 feet at the minimum setback here. What about interior buildings?
There's I think it's probably referring to that next line there, where it says the maximum height is 35 feet within 100 feet of a residential zone. However, then the height then creeps up to 45 feet the further away you get from the side lot line. Or from the line.
So 45 feet is the height limit. Is that?
Yes.
That's correct.
But you say that was?
That was, yeah, that was gone away. They were.
No.
No, it's not going away.
No.
It's not.
It's part of the requirements in the.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I thought that was repealed to where there was no restriction on height.
No.
No.
Yeah, it probably could have
Okay.
been worded a little better, but the intent there is that if the EC zone is amended to allow more height, then they wouldn't have to come back through necessarily for a development plan approval, revision to the guidelines to allow the additional height and so I'd say that there's nothing in the works right now for amending the EC zone. We do know that is an ask to study, and when that comes forward, that would be a public review process, and
Okay.
everybody would have an opportunity to comment
to
on
go
it.
over it.
Yeah, and like I said, it has to go all the way through county commission for adoption, so it's a big process.
Okay. I do believe their office building, they are looking at possibly exceeding 45 feet. So again, that would be something where we would see where that office building was going to be, and then again.
So during an amendment process, we typically don't get into where, like an exact development plan.
Correct.
Now, there could be stipulations in the ordinance amendment that says like how far away from other properties, height once they exceed a certain height, they have to be a certain distance away from some other property or something along those lines. So there could be controls to help mitigate additional height.
Right. Okay.
Mike, on the case summary, it says that one of the zones is CA general business.
They have a very small little square or rectangle of CA zone. I'm not sure.
But I mean, is there a different height restriction?
There is in the CA zone. I'd have to look it up, but
I think it's less in CA.
That's
We'll get
fine.
it up on the screen here for you.
I was just wondering if that's where they plan to build the office building, and that's why it might be taller. But
It's the
don't
same.
know.
No building shall exceed 45 feet in the CA zone as well.
Okay, so apparently
yes,
building heights.
Yes, I do completely apologize for the fact that
No worries.
that was not
That's okay.
clear.
All right, let's talk about the buffer zone. Right now, it's set at 100 feet. They're asking for 250 feet. 100 feet is a pretty good buffer.
Yeah, they didn't change that buffer. I think they're actually exceeding the maximum in some instances. Let's see, the minimum width of a buffer is 100 feet when adjacent to residential zones, 50 feet when adjacent to agricultural and open space zones. But they have their buffer at 100 feet for, I believe it's residential, agricultural. It might say open space too. I'd have to see exactly how it's worded, but yeah.
100-foot buffer is a pretty good buffer, compared to 5 foot.
Oh, right. Again, with a 45-foot building restriction in place, that's great. Again, until there's further plans to exceed that. A 45-foot building, can it be built just 100 feet off the property line? That's the buffer is 100 feet, correct?
The buffer adjoining ag is only 50 feet, so that if they're requiring 100, if they're agreeing to do 100, they've doubled what the zoning ordinance would require. But I would say yes, if they have a 100-foot buffer, they could build at that 100-foot mark.
Okay.
But that usually includes landscaping and things like that help.
Yeah, and some trees to help
trees
cover.
and stuff.
We actually have folks here from the chamber and Greenheck who can probably speak to landscaping and buffers and building locations if that's what we'd like.
Just for my edification, if the 45 feet height is that, I mean, that's does away with one concern, right?
It does, yes, completely.
So if it stays at 45, do you still have an objection to the 100-foot buffer?
100 feet is less than half the size of this room, and then if you go 45 feet up, you're.
This room's not 100 feet wide.
No, I was the length. It's about
I'm sure
100
it's
feet.
100 feet long, but I could
Right.
be wrong.
So if the building is 45 feet tall and it's only 100 feet away from the property line, that is, it's a massive impact to that area, which again, there were some protections that were discussed and approved back in 2015 when this entire thing started to move forward. So the setback being, again, on 345 acres, it just, when you go out there and you measure 100 feet, it's real close.
So a question I have, if we go back to 2006, when this was Midway Business Park and it was going to be a business park, what was the buffer zone requirement for the zoning?
Oh, it was 100 feet.
Okay. So I mean, I think the requirement now hasn't changed from what it was in
Or actually,
2006.
I believe it's actually 50 feet, and they've doubled it on, that's what was stated.
Yeah,
earlier,
so I think what I'm hearing is you're asking to
increase
the buffer zone beyond
Right.
what it's ever been for this development, even before, the new owners started pursuing it for
Correct.
something different than the original concept of the business park.
Which
do we?
Again, the actual Green Heck themselves, the whole process. If you look at their buildings in North Carolina and Wisconsin, I know they're going to come in and it will be upstanding work
Sure.
as far as how it looks from a
Sure.
aesthetic
Yeah.
portion.
Yeah.
The fact that it can be so tall and be so close, that's where we have a lot of people that are worried about that.
So I guess my question, and I don't know who could best answer this, do we have any other district zones where we are requiring more than 100-foot buffer between residential and whatever else?
I can't think of any.
Yeah.
There's, in the industrial zone, special, anything that's considered a use permitted on review, I think has to be like 300 feet from a residence or something along those lines. But it's not really a buffer zone per se like this is.
Yeah.
It's like a setback to the use. It's a little different,
And
but
it's related to like auto salvage where they're crushing cars and there's
Yeah.
intense noises and probably smells and,
Yeah.
and then that type of stuff.
In the interest of time, your time has expired. I appreciate it.
Yes.
I want to give the developers, the folks in Green Heck, an opportunity to speak if they want to.
I thank you all for their time today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Lawyer with the Knoxville Chamber, 17 Market Square. So here to answer any questions. There's obviously a long history to the development of this business park. That 100-foot buffer has been in place for a long time. As it's been stated, it's kind of double what the zone requires. And, we'd like that to stay where that is. As far as the height, I think we've talked the height thing out here, so.
I do have a question. Do you have any plans or current layouts that show buildings built right up against the buffer? Wouldn't there not be like a fire lane or something between the buffer and the buildings, or parking, or I don't know?
Brett Salisbury with the Design Innovations for 200 Gay Street. Sorry about that. We don't have any plans to build right up against the buffer at this time.
Thank you. Any other?
I would
Ms.
like
Longmire?
to state, being in on the project from the very beginning, back when we were trying to see if there could be a business park developed there, whatever, having this particular business is so far ahead of some of the other things that could have gone in there that I would probably be there baking them cookies.
Thank you, Ms. Longmire. Any other discussion? Whose district is this? Is this yours?
Of course it is.
It's mine. I'd like to thank you for coming. I appreciate the community's concern. I really think working with the development, you all are going to come out so far ahead of what it could have been. And I think the horses will get used to the sounds. And probably if you have cows, they'll be at the fence looking to see what's going on, because they do that. But I would like to, and I don't quite know how to state this as well as it should be, but do I deny their, okay, I would like to deny the appeal of the Shackelford properties.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and just to clarify, if you vote aye, you are denying the applicant's motion. If you say no, you are agreeing with the applicant. That being said, call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Deny, yes, deny.
No.
Yes.
You're actually, yes.
Yes, I'm voting yes. Okay.
Okay, Jonathan Repass.
Aye.
Doug Lloyd. Ashley Williams.
Aye.
Cecil Anderson. John Elliott.
Aye.
Sherry Garrett.
Aye.
Rebecca Longmire. And Paul Huff.
Yes, just so you won't be alone. I hope that we've clarified some of your concerns and that you'll find a way to live with the development as it goes forward. Thank you very much. Item O on our agenda has, as I understand it, opted out. Therefore, we are done. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Everybody turn your PA systems off.
We're off. We're out. We're done.